Naruto. Start by chopping down a tree and shocking Kurama. Chapter 41. Don't bully honest people. Kakashi and the three little ones quickly arrived at the Hokage building. Along the way, the other ninjas saw a very iconic yellow-haired member of Team 7, and they all showed hatred on their faces and gnashed their teeth. They wanted to rush forward and attack him together. Everyone's gazes didn't affect Naruto and Sasuke, even Kakashi didn't care. Kakashi experienced the angry looks of the villagers when he was a child, and Sasuke is now obsessed with revenge and doesn't care at all about how others view him. Naruto said that I was looked down upon by my family all day long, and I even dared to whistle at their door to provoke them. Besides, all the people who have been angry with me over the years have lined up at the entrance of Konoha village. If they want to glare at me, they should line up at the back first. The girl Sakura, on the other hand, was very frightened and kept leaning against Sasuke. I don't know whether I am really afraid or just pretending to be afraid. Kakashi put his hands in his pockets and walked into the Hokage's office with a deadpan look. At this time, the third generation was smoking, and the office was filled with smoke, like a fairyland on Earth. It can be seen that Konoha's old village chief is very worried. Everyone is here. The Sandai glanced at the four people, then picked up the mission scroll on the table and threw it at Kakashi. Snapped. Kakashi raised his hand to take the mission scroll, then opened it to check the mission content. Naruto, who had been unable to contain himself any longer, kept jumping up and down and trying to peek, but was held back by Kakashi. And he also found that Kakashi, who was reading the scroll, had a strange expression on his face. Is it necessary to look like your father has died when escorting an old man? Naruto didn't understand Kakashi, he just thought he didn't want to leave the village to do the mission. It's finally here. The first copy. The Kingdom of Waves. Naruto was very excited, as if he might fight against the demon Zabuza in the next second. Excited.jpg. Kakashi looked at the mission scroll for a long time, even turning it at various angles to look at it, before asking the third Hokage in an uncertain tone. Third generation. Are you sure this kind of mission is in compliance with regulations? The three little ones all looked at Kakashi. Although I don't know the content of the mission, I know that this mission is very dangerous. Sasuke smiled coldly, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. Although this is the first time this has happened. But according to the process, there is no problem. The Sandai took a puff of his cigarette, his expression as strange as Kakashi's. Naruto was speechless. If he hadn't watched Naruto, he would have been pissed off to death by these two riddlers. Isn't it just an escort for Lao Deng from Wave Country? As for it, Naruto tugged on Kakashi's trouser leg, motioning for him to show him the scroll. He wanted to see what was written in the scroll that could make Konoha's top technician show such an expression. Kakashi glanced at Naruto, sighed deeply, and after hesitating for 3 seconds, handed the scroll to Naruto. Let me be healthy. Naruto took the scroll and excitedly opened it, and then he saw. Sea-level mission. Entrust the entire Team 7 of Konoha village to travel outside the village for a month. Mission reward. 2,000 million taels. Mission issuer. Jointly commissioned by the villagers of Konoha village. Naruto's hands holding the scroll shook uncontrollably, his expression changing several times a second. The mental journey went from expectation at the beginning to disappointment, confusion, and finally anger. So rough. Isn't this bullying? I, Uzumaki Naruto, have shed blood for the Hidden Leaf village. How can you do this to me? When will the tailed beast Jinchuriki be able to stand up? I forgot the beginning. I forgot the middle. I forgot the end. Anyway, I was so angry. The villagers of Konoha village jointly commissioned. What's even more outrageous is the reward for this mission. 2,000 million taels. There are more Tomadi heads than half of Asma's. At this moment, Naruto finally felt the malice of the villagers of Kimura. If this wasn't a mission issued by the village's ninja, he, Uzumaki Naruto, will jump down from the Hokage building now. Naruto grabbed the scroll and threw it to the ground, shouting angrily, "Third generation old man. This is bullying an honest man like me. What's wrong with me using my shadow clone to complete missions? They are all low-level tasks. Why is this so? Sasuke was a little disappointed when he found out it was not a combat mission, but his reaction was not as intense as Naruto's. Sakura was quite happy, as she could get money when she went out to play. How can I not be happy? Sandai smiled awkwardly, picked up his pipe and started smoking again. He was also helpless. Naruto has completed all the low-level tasks in the village in the past 2 months. What should the other genin in the village do who have just graduated from the ninja school? You can't just run out of the village to carry out a combat mission as your first mission, right? It's obviously not in line with Konoha village's long-standing style. In addition, the other ninjas had too much resentment towards Team 7, so in the end everyone just bit the bullet and raised a huge sum of money. Anyway, they would first ban the cheating Team 7, so that everyone would have tasks to do for the team. The third generation thought that everyone's idea was good, so he didn't try to stop it. Just let this child go out and relax. The Sandaime organized the thoughts in his mind, then spoke to Naruto with a kind face. Naruto. You're already grown up, don't you want to see the outside world? And this task is so easy. Having said that, the third generation still felt a little uneasy. After all, his own village sent Naruto away in the form of a mission. This is the first time such a thing has happened since the establishment of Konoha. 3 generations of people admire the person who came up with this idea. Naruto was momentarily speechless. Mud. So angry. I just figured out how to solo and not kill anymore. Now I am told that I have been jointly commissioned by the village to travel for a month. The reward was quite high and the mission was quite easy, but Naruto just felt very angry. Naruto, look at it. I think this is a good mission. Kakashi's eyes were curved with joy, he patted Naruto's shoulder and said something comforting. Even Sasuke and Sakura could smell the salty fish scent emanating from his body. Naruto. Of course you think it's good. He eats my food and drinks my drinks every day. When he has nothing to do, he just takes his intimate paradise and lies on the tree, lying there all day long. Naruto even began to suspect whether Kakashi was a fellow time traveler. I didn't notice Kakashi posing like this when I read the original work before. After thinking it over, Naruto finally agreed. There is no way to disagree, the decision is up to Kakashi. In this way, Team 7 received the mission to go out of the village for a trip. Naruto, with his tired body, looked at the somewhat happy Kakashi and his mood suddenly became worse. The taste of salted fish is overflowing. Naruto sniffed his nose and even felt a little choked. And many more. Wrong. This is the real salted fish flavor. Naruto's eyes regained their former luster. You know, there is no such strong smell in Konoha village. The fishy smell around is a bit choking. It must be that old dang Dasna from the land of waves. After carefully observing the people near the Hokage building, Naruto soon discovered a little old man about 1.5 meters tall. Chapter 42 Let Go. I in #039, am going to turn evil. As soon as Kakashi walked out of the Hokage building, he found that Naruto was nowhere to be seen. I am so tired. This team is so difficult to lead. It's already like this before we even leave the village. Kakashi doesn't dare to imagine what will happen after leaving the village. Where's Naruto? Sasuke turned his head away to indicate that he didn't know. Sakura thought about it for a while, then pointed at the Hokage building and said uncertainly. I just thought I saw Naruto looking back again. Maybe we're going back to find the third generation master. Kakashi looked up at the sky, exhausted both physically and mentally. He seemed to understand the teacher's feelings at that time. And Naruto is harder to raise than Obito. While Kakashi was missing his good friend in his heart, he led the 2 people behind him back to the Hokage building. Then, they saw Naruto arguing with a little old man. Old dang, you are here to cause trouble, right? I just told you that I'm a genin from Konoha village. I can take your mission. The price is very fair. Naruto almost couldn't help but kill his client first. Just now he ran up very politely and called me grandpa. But this old dang was so ignorant that he just waved his hand and told me to go wherever I wanted. He was saying something like, "Little kids, don't come here and make trouble." Okay. It was his fault that he didn't wear the ninja forehead protector. As a result, when he took it out to show the old man didn't even look at him, and his eyes were always scanning the Chunin and Jonin in the hall. "How much does it cost to entrust you?" Dasna finally couldn't stand this kid anymore and asked casually, his eyes constantly glancing at the tasks on the formula board while mentally calculating the money he had. As someone who has always lacked theoretical knowledge of ninja, this question directly stumped Uzumaki Naruto. Even though he had watched Naruto in his previous life, he didn't know how much money it would take to hire a ninja, let alone how much money it would take to hire their Team 7. Thinking back to the task that the third generation had just given to Team 7. 2,000 million taels equals sea-level mission. Maybe this is a bit exaggerated, but it shouldn't be too much to say that I have 10 times less, right? Then Naruto shouted 200 million ryo to Dasna without thinking. At least Lao Deng can afford 1/10 of the price, right? When Dasna heard the price, his face turned darker than the bottom of a pot. 200 million taels. Why the hell don't you just go and rob it? The total amount of money he had was less than 30 taels. He immediately waved to the little brat in front of him, telling him to disappear from his sight. One of them thought the price he quoted was very fair, while the other thought the other was ripping off a stranger, so they started arguing in the hall. Go. I think you are here to cause trouble. I just came to issue an escort mission, and you asked for 200 million taels right away. Are all of you Konoha ninjas made of gold? Naruto was really pissed off by this old man. Not only was he defeated by the Konoha village ninjas using despicable means today, but now even the quest NPC is not assigning quests to him properly. I was already giving Dasna face by not shouting, "Skip," when I saw him just now. How can I not be angry when I see that I am not assigned the task? However, Naruto had no idea that he had casually called out an S-rank mission reward. I think you came to Konoha just to cause trouble. Naruto immediately pulled out a diamond sword from the system, waved it at the opponent and shouted angrily, and it seemed that he was about to rush up and chop the opponent in the next second. Naruto, calm down. Calm down first. If you have anything to say, talk it over nicely. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, Kamijitsuki Izumo and Kojitetsu immediately rushed forward. One of them hugged Naruto's waist and the other grabbed his hand. It took a lot of effort to stop the child. They were really afraid that the Nine Tails Jinchuriki would hack their client to death in the Hokage building. But they were really confused. Where on earth does this kid get so much strength? Don't stop me, uncles. I asked for a mission reward of 200 million taels. How is that high? Komatsuki Izumo. Steel iron. The two were shocked when they heard the amount. No wonder people started to criticize him directly. Is it really okay for you to ask an old man for an S-level mission reward? That. Naruto, is there a possibility that the 200 million ryo you said is indeed a bit high? Shen Yu Chuyun was silent for a moment and finally started to complain. Impossible. The old man from the third generation just gave us a C-level mission. If we go out of the village and play for a month, we will get a reward of 2,000 million taels. I asked for 10 times less. What's wrong with that? The two of them fell silent again when they heard about Team 7's mission to leave the village. Because they both paid for this. After all, who doesn't have a few relatives who just graduated from the ninja school? At this moment, the two of them felt really embarrassed when they heard the real person suddenly say this. Besides, could it be that this kid has some misunderstanding about the mission reward? Do you understand the concept of 2,000 million taels? It took more than 300 ninjas and 1,000 villagers from all over Konoha village, as well as the generous sponsorship of the Hyuga clan, to raise these 2,000 million taels. Just so that you can stop doing low-level tasks in the village. If this continues, you, Uzumaki Naruto, won't have to farm anymore, but the ninjas in Konoha village will have to farm, otherwise they won't be able to survive. As for why the Hyuga clan sponsored so much, all I can say is that everyone who understands understands. Kakashi twitched his eyes at the scene. It's only been a few minutes since we last met. How did Naruto get himself into trouble again? I'm so tired. When will Lord Jiraiya return to the village? Kakashi had never thought about Master Jiraiya as much as he did right now. After all, Naruto is the son of Jiraiya-sama's disciple. It would be reasonable for me to throw Naruto to him when the time comes, right? After all, 3 generations have been doing this. Kakashi rubbed his temples. He felt that when he had time, he should ask the third Kai what medicine he usually took. He walked up to Naruto with no hope in his life, and held the boy's head with his hand. Naruto. 2 million taels is already the reward for an S-level mission. Naruto's face changed, his anger rose instantly, and he almost lost control of the tailed beast chakra in his body. These people in Konoha village are really going too far. How on earth could they have the nerve to spend their own money on the rewards for 20 S-level missions? Didn't I, Uzumaki Naruto, make any contribution to the village? Chilling. Everyone looked at Naruto, who was grunting, and no one dared to continue teasing the child, for fear that the tailed beast's chakra would get out of control. Kakashi just watched from the side for a while and roughly knew what Naruto intended. He looked up and down at the little old man in front of him. Old man, I am the leader Jonin of this child. What task do you need to issue? When Dasna heard the Jonin's expression relax a lot, his heart started beating again. Please ask for a Jonin. It shouldn't be cheap, right? However, this guy looks much more reliable than that kid. Dasna's eyes rolled and a plan came to his mind. He said to Kakashi calmly, I need you to escort me to the land of waves. I just looked at the notice board. The escort mission is considered a C-level mission. The reward is, I can only afford $25. Chapter 43. A new storm has emerged. How can we stop moving forward? 25 taels is neither too much nor too little for an escort mission. Kakashi didn't really care about this little bit of money. It just so happened that they were going to travel out of the village for a month, so they did it together. He turned his head to look at the 3 little ones, wanting to hear his subordinates' opinions. Especially Naruto. The task amount suddenly dropped from 200 million taels to 25 taels. I wonder if this kid will make a fuss. Sasuke put his hands in his pockets, frowned, and electric light flashed from time to time. He glanced at Kakashi and said nonchalantly, all right. Sakura shook her pink hair, jumped out from behind Sasuke, raised her right hand and said, Kakashi-sensei, I'm fine. Seeing his only female student being so well behaved, Kakashi finally felt better. There is still a normal student in my team. He then shifted his gaze to the troublemaker Naruto Uzumaki of Team 7, fearing that this kid might do something wrong again. Naruto shook Kakashi's head, indicating that he was still angry. And the voice I just shouted 200 million taels was so loud. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if I bow my head now? Besides, can't this Beimao Zongdang find a way out for himself? Not mature at all. Ha 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 ha, we'll take on this task, old man. Kakashi laughed dryly a few times, then took him to register the mission information. The ninjas watching around all breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this scene. Very good. It seems that Team 7, which has taken on another mission, won't be back anytime soon. I have to hurry up and grab the few low-level tasks in the village. The ninjas who were joking just now suddenly felt their hearts tighten, and they immediately realized that everyone present was their competitor, and their eyes, which were originally just for fun, turned fierce. Rough. I am determined to complete the low-level tasks that follow. The ninjas of Konoha village are about to start a new round of internal storm. A new storm has appeared. How can the Konoha ninjas stop moving forward? Seeing the figure of the white-haired Chudo leaving, although Naruto looked a little angry on the surface, he was still a little excited inside. The Wave Kingdom dungeon is about to be opened. He now also wants to see the extent of his own strength. The reason why Kakashi was injured by a punch before was that Beimao was careless and did not dodge. In addition, Konoha's gold medal technician Mr. Ka is on par with everyone, so using him as a standard to measure your own strength is somewhat not rigorous. After all, this guy fought back and forth with Zabuza, and later on he was able to battle with Otsutsuki. Rounding down. Zabuza equals Kagaya Otsutsuki. Naruto always felt that Kakashi was blessed by the power of the world. Therefore, it was very necessary for him to use the early small boss Zabuza to test his own strength. In a few minutes, Kakashi came down from upstairs with Dasna. Meet at the village entrance at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Everyone remember not to be late. Kakashi didn't seem embarrassed at all when he said this. The three little ones stared at Kakashi at the same time, and almost pointed at a certain white-haired ninja. Obviously, you are the one who is most likely to be late in class 7, right? Okay, dismissal. Kakashi, a veteran of many battles, would naturally not be scared by the looks of the three genin. He calmly told them to go back to their homes, and then he took Dasna to arrange accommodation first. Sasuke had no home, so he skillfully used Naruto's light gate to go back to the grove for training. At first, Sakura felt embarrassed to ask Naruto to send her off, but now that they were familiar with each other, she didn't take it to heart at all and immediately walked through the light gate and returned to her doorstep. As for Naruto, his situation is similar to Sasuke's, both of them have a house but no home. The only difference is that my daughter-in-law has a lot of relatives. After seeing the couple off, Naruto threw out a space gate and came to the Hyuga clan's territory. The Hyuga clan was stunned when they saw the familiar yellow-haired man, and the atmosphere at the scene suddenly became thick. Naruto pretended not to notice and walked towards the wall. In full view of everyone, he climbed over the wall and entered the inner courtyard in a few seconds. Why not use the space gate to go in? The main reason is that Naruto thinks this is more exciting. The Hyuga ninjas were so angry when they saw the yellow-haired man swiftly climbing over the wall that their veins bulged. If it weren't for the fact that these people had different physiques from ordinary people, they might have been irritated to the point of having a cerebral thrombosis by one of the yellow-haired men. But it's okay. This kid is leaving the village tomorrow. Naruto, who climbed over the wall, was still thinking about how to say goodbye to Hinata. As soon as he landed and turned around, he bumped into a burly body. Looking up, Naruto's face froze. Finish. Why is Rizu Leodang here? The two looked at each other for a long time without speaking. Naruto's eyes were dodgy and he felt uneasy. There's no way around it, the father-in-law always has a natural suppressive power over the son-in-law. Hinata Hiyashi's eyes were as sharp as a knife, and because of his Byakugan, Naruto couldn't see much. Judging from his stern face. Probably quite angry. Hiyashi looked at Naruto for a long moment and said faintly. Go through the main door next time. Hinata is at the training ground. After saying this, he turned around and left. Naruto scratched his head with a somewhat subtle expression. He found that his father-in-law didn't seem that fierce. The Hyuga clan's territory was huge, and it took Naruto nearly 10 minutes of walking to find the training grounds. It must be said that the Hyuga clan is truly worthy of being a powerful clan of Konoha. Seeing Hinata training, Naruto greeted her, sat down in the corridor of the house, and watched her train quietly. The Hyuga clan has a strict family tradition, and the set training tasks must be completed in one go, so even with Naruto's arrival, Hinata still did not stop training. However, the little girl who was pounding the wooden stakes was not paying attention to the training at all. Every time she made a palm strike, she turned her head slightly and secretly looked at Naruto. In the end, the Hyuga elder shook his head, indicating that today's training was over. The elder glanced at Hinata, then glanced at the yellow-haired man beside him, and left the training ground with his hands behind his back and a sigh. He finally understood. My eldest daughter is determined to run away with this yellow-haired guy. Fortunately, the clan leader was wise. When he saw the yellow-haired man a few years ago, he gradually shifted his focus to the second young lady. After the training, Hinata was sweating profusely, her hair was wet and stuck to her cheeks, and her little face was slightly red like an apple. Hinata found a seat and sat down, but didn't dare sit next to Naruto. She felt that she was sweating all over and was very concerned about Naruto smelling her sweat. A girl's mind is always hard to guess. Naruto would never think so much and didn't understand why Hinata suddenly ran to sit aside. "Why are you sitting so far away?" Before Hinata could finish her words, Naruto grabbed her jade-white ankle and gently pulled it towards him. "Naruto-kun, let go." So embarrassing. Hinata opened her mouth slightly and couldn't help but scream. She was afraid of being discovered by others, so she covered her mouth subconsciously. Feeling Naruto's furnace-like hand on her ankle, her ears turned red. After she came to her senses, she hurriedly covered her face with both hands, and there was a hint of heat coming out of her head. It can also be seen that Hinata has been teased a lot over the years and is gradually not as shy as before. Naruto laughed heartily, thinking Hinata was adorable like this. "My wife is awesome." Chapter 44 What just flying over? The next day, early morning. The members of Team 10 arrived at the gate of Konoha minutes early to wait for teacher Kakashi. Fortunately, their leading Jonin was quite reliable and was only 5 minutes late for the first mission out of the village. When Naruto saw Kakashi, he wanted to grab this guy's neck and make him take a good look at what time it was. However, Beimao Zongdang ignored the complaints of the 3 people and said with confidence that the alarm clock at home was 5 minutes slow. Being late for a few minutes. That's not late. Naruto listened to Kakashi's sophistry and rolled his eyes at him on the spot. "Teacher Kakashi, you are wrong to think so. If you're 5 minutes late, you're wasting 5 minutes for each of us. That's a full 20 minutes in total." Kakashi, Sasuke, Sakura, Dasna. I still remember that when I was in school, my teacher always used this statement to teach me a lesson. At that time, he hated this kind of remarks very much. But Naruto never thought that one day he would use this sentence to teach a white-haired ninja who was always late a lesson. As expected, Uzumaki Naruto ended up becoming the person he hated the most. Naruto's remarks instantly left Kakashi speechless. At first glance, it seems that there is nothing wrong with what he said. But after thinking about it carefully, Kakashi felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell what the problem was. Sakura and Sasuke didn't understand and were shocked after hearing this. "Haha, don't worry about these little details. Let's go." Kakashi scratched the back of his head and smiled to cover up his embarrassment. After spending a long time with Naruto, he has sorted out a way to get along with him. All this kid needs to do is find fault and divert his attention. Kakashi straightened his clothes and walked out of the gate of Konoha village with his team and old man Dasna. The moment Team 7 left, all the ninjas in Konoha village began to rush towards the Hokage building. The battle for low-level missions in Konoha village begins. If Naruto saw this scene, he would probably wonder if he had traveled to some doomsday world. As the gates of Konoha closed, Team 7 officially left the village and headed for the land of waves where Dasna was. In order to protect the client and the pink-haired guy in the team, Kakashi asked Sasuke to follow him, and Naruto stayed behind the team to cover their retreat. If an accident occurs, they can protect the 2 weakest people in the team at the first time. Kakashi was walking in front of the team. Feeling extremely bored, he reached into his ninja tool bag and took out the latest issue of Intimate Paradise, and began to read it carefully. His body even trembled with joy from time to time. Naruto behind was shocked. Why can Kakashi laugh when he sees little Liu Bei? It's not like he had read some books in his previous life, but none of them were as good as Kakashi's. Naruto suddenly became curious about the content of Intimate Paradise. Sakura was walking in the team with a backpack on her back. She would steal a glance at Sasuke's profile every few seconds, and her face would turn red every time she looked at him. I don't know what's going on in this girl's mind. Dasna glanced at the white-haired Jonin who was walking and reading in front of him, then glanced at the giggling girl in front of him, and finally found the yellow-haired one at the back of the team. At this time, the yellow-haired man was holding a wooden stick in his hand, and was hitting the nearby flowers and plants like a crazy person. He even poked a bush with the stick when he encountered it. Well, can I get a refund? Dazna's old face was wrinkled into a ball. He had already begun to regret entrusting this ninja team to escort him. I sighed secretly in my heart. NND. It turns out that cheap goods are not good. I should have known not to lie about the mission. Naruto noticed that Dazna Leoden was looking at him very strangely, and he did not try to explain his behavior. This old man knows nothing. There is a deep meaning behind what he did. Hitting the surrounding flowers and plants with a wooden stick is all to find out the ninjas lying in ambush nearby. It's definitely not because the stick in my hand was too straight and I couldn't help but wave it around. However, speaking of the ninjas lying in ambush here, he had somewhat forgotten how these two ninjas who didn't even have names ambushed him and his companions. As Naruto was thinking, he stepped into a puddle. The splashing water directly wet his trouser legs, and the fabric stuck to his skin with water stains. Damn! I just changed my pants. And this puddle looks like it has a lot of bacteria. Naruto felt itchy all over just thinking about it, and kicked his legs in disgust. He felt that as long as he kicked fast enough, the water on his pants would not touch his skin. Then, a yellow-haired guy at the back of the team stood there and kept kicking sideways, his pants rustling with his movements. At this moment, two ninjas in strange costumes suddenly jumped out of two puddles on the ground. Just then one of them jumped out from under Naruto's feet. He really had no other choice but to hide in the puddle. The two of them were lying in ambush nearby, but who knew that this yellow-haired guy? He picked up a stick and poked here and there. They were just a little bit away from being exposed. Finally, the two of them found an opportunity. It turned into two puddles of water on the road. Although it looked a bit awkward, it was better than being poked out by this kid with a wooden stick. I've put up with you all this time. Go to hell. Naruto had just entered the dual line mode. He was stroking the big fox in the sealed space while kicking his legs to dry his pants. Before he could react, he felt like he kicked something. What just flew over there? While Naruto was in a daze, Sasuke had already stabbed the sneak-attacking ninja to death with a kunai. Sasuke stretched out his hand and pointed far away, and then Naruto saw a corpse lying on the ground with its head twisted 360 degrees. Ah! This. So it was this guy that he kicked just now. Naruto was really confused. He thought he could have a good fight. The result, that's it. That's it. Kakashi raised his eyelids and glanced at the two guys, then calmly turned the pages of the book, as if the two sneak-attacking enemies had never appeared. But Naruto. He is truly the #1 ninja in terms of unexpectedness. Sakura felt a little regretful. The murderous aura of the enemy just now made her hands and feet become numb. Her only instinct was enough for her to raise the kunai in her hand and hold it in front of her body in a defensive posture. If Sasuke hadn't acted in time, she felt that she and her client were about to be killed tragically at the hands of the other party. Sakura felt a sense of powerlessness again. Kakashi noticed that the girl's expression was not right, so he slowed down his pace and spoke softly. Don't worry too much, Sakura. People's physiques are different. Sakura looked up at her teacher, then looked at her two teammates. But why is there such a big gap between people? Kakashi was stunned by the girl's words, and then he said with a strange look on his face, Sakura, you may have misunderstood what I meant. They are not human at all. Uchiha Sasuke. Uzumaki Naruto. The two people in the team turned their heads to look at Beimao at the same time, with confusion in their eyes. Chapter 45 Kakashi. Day 1 of Abstinence. Sasuke snorted coldly at Kakashi's words. He felt that he was still a long way from Naruto and his strength was still within the human range. Just think of what I just said as praising myself. Sasuke thought to himself. Uchiha Itachi. Just wait. I will kill you soon. Naruto frowned and looked at Kakashi with a painful expression. Hatake Kakashi. You have already received your death. Although my body's recovery ability has improved a little, please don't expel me from the membership. Naruto gritted his teeth, took out the large door panel from his arms without saying a word, and tiptoed behind Kakashi. Of course, his action of carrying the large door panel was really conspicuous. When Kakashi saw the large door panel, his pupils trembled and cold sweat immediately broke out on his forehead. Why is this child so obsessed with the door panel? Or are you pulling the door to show that you're thinking about your father Minato Namikaze? What are you going to do? Several people at the scene turned their eyes to Naruto at the same time, and the atmosphere suddenly became awkward. The sneak attack plan of a certain yellow-haired ninja was directly ruined. Noticing everyone's strange looks, Naruto didn't want to backstab his own teacher in public. You know, respecting teachers is a good quality for a flower grower. However, in Naruto, it seems that it is a traditional skill for disciples to backstab their teachers. Boom. Naruto lifted up the door, kicked up a cloud of dust, slammed it twice, and then spoke. The door is a bit moldy. I'll take it out and dry it in the sun. That makes sense, right? Ha 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 ha, Kakashi-sensei, you don't think I'm going to sneak attack you, do you? Kakashi. I would have believed it if you hadn't lifted the door and walked behind me. Let's go, don't delay the mission. Kakashi used the diversion technique again, then turned his head and got in front of Dasna. Old man, let me tell you about your mission. Isn't it right? How could a normal C-rank escort mission result in a ninja attack? He narrowed his single eye, and murderous intent instantly enveloped Dasna. Is this considered an A-level mission? Although Kakashi looks like a lazy guy and seems very easy to talk to on the surface, it doesn't mean that he wants to be a sucker. However, we can use this opportunity to see the unity of Class 7. Dasna avoided Kakashi's gaze and turned his head away, not daring to look him in the face. And the old man had no doubt that the ninja in front of him would kill him. Thinking of his family and the unfinished bridge, all these filled the old man with fear. Haha, don't be nervous. Kakashi, who had murderous intent just now, suddenly smiled and looked at the three little ones beside him. This mission has reached grade A level. Are you going to continue or give up? Continue. Me too. Sasuke said coldly, and Sakura beside him immediately agreed. I'm okay. Naruto had a serious expression and seemed to be getting serious. When the old man Dasna heard that the other party was still willing to continue the mission, the smile on his face became extremely bright, then his face became sad again, and then he said to several people. Sorry, everyone. I do this for a reason. Shut up. Skip. Skip. Naruto didn't want to listen to this old man's blabbering. He didn't even have the patience to play the game through the plot, so how could he listen to him talking for so long? The main feature is A. I don't know who I am, I don't know where I am, but I know I'm going to kill. The eyes of the other members of Class 7 twitched. Here we go again. Naruto started saying something incomprehensible again. Dasna had just been building up his emotions in his mind, preparing to use some moral blackmail on several ninjas, but he was suddenly interrupted by Naruto, and the words he was about to say were instantly stuck in his throat. Why can't this boy just listen to what I have to say? Naruto had been on guard against this old man. Moral kidnapping. As long as I have no morals, you can't kidnap me. This mission wasn't even important, since he was here to clear the Wave Country dungeon anyway. As for the people who are suffering in Wave Country, I am not Guanyin, the savior of suffering, so why should I care about the life and death of these people? After Kakashi confirmed that all team members said they were okay, he nodded and signaled everyone to continue on their way. There were no more ninja attacks on the road afterwards. During lunch, Naruto felt a little bored. He glanced at the book in Kakashi's hand, then looked at Sasuke who was in a daze. The corner of his mouth curled up, and his consciousness instantly sank into the sealed space and began to search through the large number of items in the system. After about 20 minutes, Naruto pulled the book out of the system. Found it. There are 4 big characters written on the cover of the book, X breaks the sky. After laughing twice and exiting the space with his consciousness, Naruto looked at Sasuke's expressionless face again and immediately took out the book. Under the influence of external rules, the book became real the moment it appeared, and the words inside it also became the words of this world. Anyway, the protagonist of this novel really fits Sasuke. Well, they are all playing with fire. So who is the grandfather? Orochimaru or Kakashi? Sasuke, this is for you. Sasuke, who was in a daze, subconsciously raised his hand to catch the thing thrown by Naruto. When he looked closely, he found that it was a book with a dark brown cover with some confusing words written on it. X breaks the sky. After finishing, the boy even glanced at a certain white-haired guy. Kakashi, who sensed the element, immediately turned his head to look at the book in Sasuke's hand, and then his expression became a little strange. Naruto, this kid. Could it be that he went to Konoha bookstore to read the book in his hand? Isn't it too early for them to be exposed to adult things at this age? Kakashi's eyes widened and he began to wonder. Is it because I often watch Intimate Paradise in front of them? After realizing that he might have led his disciples astray, Kakashi instantly saw Jiraiya's lecherous look in the furious master's wife. If my wife knew this. After you go to the Pure Land, you will suffer the consequences, right? When the old father saw his current state, he guessed that he would be severely beaten. Alas, I can't continue to degenerate like this. Kakashi tightly grasped Xiaolu Bei in his hand, feeling very reluctant, but for the physical and mental health of several disciples. He decided to start from today. Reboot. Start by not watching Intimate Paradise. After Kakashi made up his mind, he immediately began to preach to Sasuke and Naruto, and he even began to feel more confident. Naruto, Sasuke. This kind of thing is really too early for you. The adult world is not something you can explore at your age. After saying that, Kakashi slowly stretched his hand into Sasuke's arms, and the next moment he was about to confiscate this unknown book. Although he hadn't seen the specific content just now, just seeing the words, Expo, on the cover made him feel that it was not a healthy reading material. He has extensive experience in this regard. Snapped. Sasuke raised his hand and slapped Kakashi's hand away. It would have been fine if he hadn't said that. Once he said he was not allowed to read it, Sasuke became even more curious about what was inside. Besides, Sasuke believed that as someone who bore a deep blood feud, he was qualified to understand the adult world. Sakura's face turned slightly red and her eyes kept glancing at the book in Sasuke's hand. Open black lens bracket, very good, close black lens bracket. Has Sasuke finally come to his senses? Thank you so much, Naruto. Kakashi-sensei, what are you talking about? This is not what you see. Naruto rolled his eyes, he was almost speechless. Sure enough, Beimao's mind is filled with yellow garbage. Upon hearing this, Sasuke immediately opened the book and glanced at it, then nodded to indicate that Naruto was right. After realizing that he had made a mistake and caused great embarrassment, Kakashi stepped back expressionlessly and pretended nothing had happened. Just as he was about to take out little Liu Bei, he remembered the decision he had just made and stopped taking out the book. When Sakura heard that the book in Sasuke's hand was not the same as Kakashi's, she hugged her knees in disappointment and looked extremely helpless. However, in the process, Sasuke thought the contents of the book were somewhat novel, but after taking a look at it, he found it strange. Is this the story of the rise of the last place guy? It's so boring. Chapter 46. It was just a joke, why are you so angry? The group sailed across the calm sea on a boat and soon docked at the Wave Country Pier. Along the way, Sasuke became the person in Team 7 holding a reading material, and he laughed out loud from time to time while reading. If Naruto hadn't reminded him many times, he would have been really afraid that this kid would laugh like an Uchiha. However, Sakura and Naruto were surprised by the fact that Kakashi was in a daze all the way. It shouldn't be. Why didn't Mr. Kakashi take out Xiaolu Bei? Have you finished reading it? However, the three little ones didn't know that Kakashi was in a very upset mood at the moment. Not watching Intimate Paradise is like Asuma not smoking and Tsunade-sama not gambling. Kakashi never thought that he would have such a withdrawal reaction. Along the way, he could only calm himself down by observing the fish in the sea. Sasuke, stop looking. We're ashore. When Naruto got off the boat, he found that the kid was still holding the book, and he felt inexplicably angry. Now he seemed to understand how his mother felt when she saw him playing with his phone. Mud. Who understands? We are about to fight the boss, but our teammates are still reading novels. There is already a bad player in the team, Flagwood Wuukai, and a Sakura pendant. If you, Uchiha Sasuke, really give up, there will be no fun in this game. I was talking to Zabuza alone. To be honest, I'm still a little unsure. After all, he, who is from Foshan, really doesn't know Wing Chun, and currently he can't even beat 10 people. Of course it's nice to have a teammate who can output. Oh. Sasuke closed the book with a feeling of unfulfilled desire. He had never expected that he would be so engrossed in reading it. But this book is really well written. After watching some of the plot, Sasuke felt very happy in his heart, as if he could also become the protagonist and take revenge. He even began to imagine that he had shouted those words to Uchiha Itachi angrily on the night of the genocide. 30 years in the east. 30 years in the west. Uchiha Itachi, don't look down on the poor young man. Just thinking about it made Sasuke's scalp tingle, his whole body tremble with excitement, and he couldn't control his laughter once again. After seeing that everyone had reached the shore, he gently stroked the cover of the book, put it into his backpack like a treasure, and then followed everyone else. Sasuke was still thinking about the subsequent plot as he walked. Finally, he couldn't resist his curiosity and asked Naruto. Did Xiao Yan finally fulfill the 3-year agreement? Naruto turned his head and looked at the boy in shock. I was on alert of the surroundings the whole time, fearing that Zabuza would suddenly rush out and stab everyone. Just now, when Naruto saw Sasuke approaching him, he thought he had discovered something. As a result, you come here to ask yourself about the 3-year agreement. Do not eat oil cakes. I don't know. Get lost. Naruto shouted angrily, indicating that he didn't want to pay attention to the other party. Rejected by his teammates, Sasuke returned to the team with a disappointed look on his face. Naruto took a look at this guy and felt that he should not count on this kid. It seems that I can only place my hope on the Big Fox. Big Fox, can you help me sense the enemy? The one you used in the village before. The big fox sleeping in the cage wiggled its ears twice, flipped its huge body, and then made a buzzing sound. Are you thinking of relying on me for your first battle? Figure it out yourself. Because this was Naruto's first bloody battle, Kurama had to let him adapt, so it was naturally impossible for him to turn on the malicious perception to give Naruto a map view. And at the moment the big fox closed his eyes, he said something to himself. The enemy is all around, find it yourself. Hearing this, Naruto almost laughed out loud. Oh, the arrogant big orange. Naruto, who got the hint, instantly went into alert mode, constantly scanning his surroundings with his eyes. At this moment, the fog around them was getting thicker and thicker, and the visible range was less than 5 meters. Perhaps they would become blind in a while. Everyone, come closer to me. Protect the client. Kakashi was indeed an experienced ninja and he noticed something was wrong at first glance. It is normal to have foggy days in the land of waves, but in this situation where there is no one around and the fog is getting thicker, it is inevitable to think of the group of mist ninjas. The feeling he had on the battlefield made Kakashi feel uneasy again. After hearing this, the 3 members of the team moved closer to Kakashi without any hesitation and surrounded Dasuna in the team. Naruto stood there and looked around. Not only did he not see Zabuza, but he also became very nervous. It's really troublesome not to see. Sighing in his heart, Naruto felt a flash of golden light in his mind. The members of your own team cannot see each other. Then why not just make sure the other person can't see it? Thinking of this, Naruto clapped his hands immediately. He threw out dozens of space gates around him. The purple light cocoon instantly covered their figures. Zabuza took out the sword that was hidden in the mist. The next second, he saw a large purple light appear in front of him, which made him unable to use it. No. What is that purple light? Just as Zabuza was reorganizing his thoughts, he heard the voice of a kid coming from the other side of the purple light ball. I'm testing you, Kurigakure ninja. Naruto opened his mouth and started swearing at the people around him, trying to irritate them in this way. However, after greeting the other party's ancestors for 3 generations or more, Zabuza did not show up. Naruto couldn't help but sigh. A ninja is someone who can endure everything, right? Teacher Jiraiya. I understand. Zabuza hid in the dark, and was very disdainful of the behavior of the little ninja. Can this childish trick force me to show up? Since I have been able to survive in the blood mist, I have no emotions anymore and my heart is as cold as the beheading sword in my hand. It's so ridiculous. At this moment, a yellow-haired voice suddenly came from the fog. All Kurigakure ninjas like men. When Zabuza heard this, he couldn't help but think of Bai's beautiful figure. His eyes widened, veins on his forehead throbbed, his breathing became rapid, and the blood in his body rushed from the kickboard to the top of his head. Rough. This kid slandered me. Damn you brat. I am going to kill you. Zabuza dragged his beheading sword and rushed straight to the place where the voice came from. However, after Zabuza opened his mouth, a yellow-haired man's voice sounded again in a hurry. Yo yo yo, are you broken? No, no. You don't really like men, do you? Chapter 47. Is the Kurigakure village blocked for a shadow party? Beware of Kurigakure men. The moment Kakashi and Sasuke saw the enemy, their eyes almost popped out. The two of them were still complaining in their hearts. How could any enemy fall for this? You have to know that ninjas are absolutely rational creatures, and it is very difficult to provoke them. In less than 5 minutes, they saw a big man about 1.80 meters tall, with red eyes and steam coming out of his body, rushing towards them with a knife in his hand. He looked like an angry bull. This guy was obviously pissed off by what Naruto said. At the same time, everyone gasped, including the old man Dazna. Hiss. Could it be that the other person really likes men? So the fun in the Hidden Mist village is so extravagant. Or is there another hidden story behind the blood mist? Kakashi even speculated that the Hidden Mist village's bragging rights over the years might have been due to the promotion of a male Cage of the Mist. The closed policy of the village may be to hold a film party at home. Gone. Too scary. When the 3 men present thought of this, their faces changed at the same time, and their bodies couldn't help but do anal exercises. Beware of the male protégés from the Hidden Mist village. When Zabuza heard what the other party said, his mind went blank in an instant, and the anger in his chest seemed to erupt like a volcano at this moment. Damn you brat. I want you to die. Zabuza was so angry that he completely lost his mind. He didn't care about tactics or sneak attacks at all. He just wanted to rush forward with his beheading sword. No one present here today can get out alive. Of course, Zabuza wouldn't have been so angry, the main reason being that Haku was nearby. What if Bai misunderstood what the yellow-haired kid said? Bai hid in the mist, looking at Zabuza with tender eyes, and recalled what the child had said just now. He felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Turn out to be. Mr. Zabuza really thinks so. Mr. Uzumaki's taunting effect is outstanding. Zabuza now just wants to chop that yellow-haired kid first, and then think about his own mission. Kill the person first and talk later. Hoo hoo. Zabuza's beheading sword swung with a sound of breaking through the air. When Naruto was approached by him, every pore on his body felt like it was being pricked by needles, as if reminding him that the enemy in front of him was definitely stronger than him. In order to test his own strength, Naruto immediately took out the big iron gate and rushed straight towards Zabuza. There was no way around it. This thing was so easy to use that he even planned to go back and see if the door panel could be enchanted. Bang! The moment the big iron gate and the beheading sword came into contact, sparks flew and there was a teeth-grinding sound of metal friction. Zabuza was stunned for 2 seconds when he saw the weapon in the other person's hand. This yellow-haired kid in front of me. He was holding a door panel that was taller than him, and he used it to block his attack. What the hell is this guy? If Zabuza had not glanced at the opponent's Konoha ninja forehead protector during the battle just now, he would have doubted whether the guy in front of him was a ninja. Why is the fighting style so weird? Sasuke, who was watching on the side, was shaking uncontrollably, his eyes always fixed on the beheading sword in Zabuza's hand. Noticing something was wrong with her lover, Sakura immediately asked Sasuke who was beside her. Sasuke, are you okay? I see you. Zanzhong Kai. Sakura. What is Xuanzhongqi? Sasuke pointed at the swinging beheading sword and spoke excitedly and greedily. Ever since he read the novel, he has unconsciously imagined himself to be like the protagonist Xiao Yan. Before, the weapon that Assistant Zuo had in mind was a katana. But after reading the novel, his ideal weapon became any large weapon like the Zanzhong Kai. And now the sudden appearance of the beheading sword was really tickling his heart. This weapon must be obtained. Sasuke suddenly laughed while looking at Zabuza who was fighting. Kakashi and Sakura looked at him in confusion, not knowing what was going on with this guy. Besides, that is the beheading sword of the Hidden Mist Village. What the hell are you calling it Zanzhong Kai? Kakashi had a bad feeling in his heart. He vaguely felt that there was a bit of Naruto's shadow in Sasuke. I'll go help Naruto. Sasuke's body was glowing with lightning and he disappeared from the spot, so fast that even Kakashi was a little surprised. Apparently, someone had already activated the lightning release at maximum power for the sake of his beloved weapon. Sheila. When he and Zabuza were hammering away at the iron with the large door panel, they both heard the sound of electric current in their ears. Naruto knew that Sasuke had come and immediately shouted at him. Sasuke. Use 100,000 volts now. Okay. Zabuza didn't care about the two guys and kicked the door. Naruto was distracted and was still waiting for Sasuke to take action, but he didn't expect Zabuza to grab their butts first. He held the big iron gate in front of himself with both hands, and his head hit the door with a bang. Then he felt a huge force coming from the door. Naruto, who was totally unprepared, was knocked back 5 steps. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Sasuke, who was watching the fight on the side, finally took action, but he did not listen to Naruto and use 100,000 volts. Instead, he used the mercy technique to accumulate anger for Zabuza. The fireball hit Zabuza's location with a scorching breath. The high temperature of the burning flame and the reaction with the surrounding humid air made the fog at the scene thicker. Sasuke was delighted when he saw this. Got it. This enemy. The strength is just average. Oh, your knife is nice. It's mine now. Naruto didn't know what to say when he saw Sasuke opening champagne at halftime. You know, this kind of behavior has always been a taboo. How could Zabuza be killed by a small fireball? And the attack just now clearly conformed to the theory of smoke but no damage. Just as Naruto was guessing this, he heard a whistling sound next to his ear. Pinch it. Why is Zabuza targeting me? Could it be that Sasuke's damage didn't draw the boss's hatred? Little devil, I'm going to let you die here. You pissed me off. Zabuza raised the beheading sword and chopped it hard at Naruto's head, as if he wanted to move Naruto's head away from his body, just like the name of the weapon in his hand. Naruto felt the knife getting closer and closer, and not only did he not intend to dodge, but he also offered his head. He kicked out with both feet and delivered a rocket headbutt to Zabuza's stomach. Come. A physical duel. Whoever is cowardly is Akamaru. Zabuza never thought that this little devil would dare to approach him. He had just thought of a plan on how to chase this little devil, but now that he was suddenly approached by him, the attack with his beheading sword had failed. But it's not a big problem. How strong can a teenager be? Hoa. Naruto hit Zabuza's stomach with his head, and the demon was knocked into the position of a cooked shrimp, and flew backwards. Zabuza's eyes bulged, his mind went blank when he was knocked away, and his entire brain was buzzing. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. Mud. What on earth is this yellow-haired kid? How can you be so strong? Chapter 48 Uchiha Sasuke, just want to take the Xuanzang ruler. What in hash 039's wrong with that? Naruto's rocket head hammer not only knocked Zabuza unconscious. Even Kakashi was frightened. Just by watching the other person flying away, he already felt a dull pain in his stomach. It is hard to imagine what the enemy's inner state is at this moment. If Naruto were to be hit by this, wouldn't he be covered in bruises? Sasuke glanced at the enemy that flew away, gritted his teeth, and felt a little unbalanced. Looking at the way the other party turned around and attacked Naruto, it was obvious that he didn't take him seriously. In addition, the previous operation did not cause any damage to the enemy, which made Sasuke feel even more upset. I remember that time when he fought with Kakashi, Naruto complained about himself. He said he was as fierce as a tiger, but the output was less than 0.5. He didn't understand what he said at first, but as time went on, Sasuke gradually realized that Naruto was complaining that he didn't hit the enemy with any of his attacks. You underestimated me. Sasuke felt anger well up in his heart again. Since when did it start? The enemies now have begun to ignore the Uchiha clan. Sasuke's eyes turned red with anger at the thought of being ignored. The scarlet double Magatama Sharingan rolled wildly in his eye sockets, and then Sasuke took out a scroll from his shirt. This sealing scroll contains 1,000 shurikens, and he has 10 more scrolls like this on him. Influenced by Naruto, Sasuke gradually developed a fear of insufficient firepower. In order to deal with Uchiha Itachi in the future, he even sold his house and used the money to buy detonating tags. Sasuke easily untied the string on the scroll with a flick of his thumb, then formed a seal with one hand and swung the scroll sideways with the other. Shish! Hundreds of shurikens flew towards Zabuza's position, mixed in with a few kunai, which were also equipped with explosive tags. After learning from the previous experience, Sasuke immediately shouted to Naruto. Which road has more roads? Hearing Sasuke's voice, Naruto immediately understood what he meant and threw several light gates directly in the path of his shuriken. It was just that because the shurikens thrown by Sasuke were too dense, many of them failed to enter the light gate. Zabuza over there had just stood firm and hadn't yet recovered from the previous attack. He now felt like his intestines were twisted into a knot. Zabuza looked at the yellow-haired man and began to make seals with his hands. The defeat he suffered at the hands of the other party just now finally made him sober up a little. When he made the 26th seal, 8 purple light cocoons suddenly spread out around him, and the faint light reflected on Zabuza's face, as if reminding Zabuza with gay purple. Why is this thing again? Although Zabuza was puzzled, he knew that the current situation would not be good. Shish! The next second, the purple light cocoon shot out dense shurikens. Zabuza, who had sharp eyes, also saw that there were many kunai with explosive tags attached to them. His pupils were dizzy and he didn't even have time to think about what was going on. Having been on the verge of death for a long time, his fighting instinct and will to survive drove him to raise the beheading sword to protect the vital points. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that there was also a purple light cocoon around the other little ghost just now. That's it. Is it space-time ninjutsu? After Zabuza figured it out, he randomly found a light cocoon with few shurikens, raised his beheading sword, and rushed into the light cocoon facing the shurikens. Since the beheading sword could not block all attacks, many shurikens pierced Zabuza's body. But this little pain was nothing to him. Boom boom boom. The moment he disappeared, a series of explosions were heard where he had originally stood. Sasuke looked pleased when he saw his attack hit. Now that guy has nowhere to escape, right? My shuriken and kunai from the sealing scroll can't kill you in 1 second. Naruto never had the habit of opening champagne at half-time, so he threw a portal and rushed to Zabuza's location to check the situation. However, when he arrived, in addition to bloodstains, there were also a lot of thrown objects scattered on the ground. Idiot, give it. Beware of enemies. Naruto turned his head and found the boy grinning foolishly, and then saw Zabuza emerge from the purple light cocoon in front of Sasuke covered in blood. This is the first time that the space gate has been used by the enemy. As a user, Naruto had thought about this situation before, but he didn't care. Anyway, his physical skills are very powerful. If the enemy dares to rush into the space gate and come to his side, he will basically be killed. But the key point is, Sasuke, who was having a lot of fun, did not expect this situation at all. When he saw Zabuza rushing out of the light cocoon, he was slightly stunned. In just this short period of time, Zabuza's beheading sword had already chopped off his head. Fortunately, the abnormal dynamic vision of the Sharingan allowed Sasuke to react in time. He leaned back, and the beheading sword just brushed past his nose. If he was a second later, Sasuke's head would have been chopped off by the opponent. But at this moment, he used all his strength to activate the lightning chakra in his body. Under the influence of the lightning chakra stimulating cells, Sasuke's speed increased several times. After dodging the opponent's beheading sword, Sasuke immediately counterattacked Zabuza. Sasuke gently turned his wrist and kicked Zabuza's wrist holding the knife. Bang! The clone technique. Sasuke was numb. I just want to explode the opponent's weapons. Why is it so difficult? At the same time, Zabuza's voice rang in Naruto's ears again. Water release. Water dragon bullet. Naruto. Gone. Why is Zabuza trying to catch me? Naruto didn't even have to turn his head to feel the power of this jutsu. And it's very close. Even his hair was wet from the water of this ninjutsu. Naruto gritted his teeth. He failed to grab the target several times in a row and he was getting a little angry. Good. Zabuza, you're going to play like this, right? All your injuries were caused by the evil Uchiha brat, so you have to target me, right? Wind style. Blood violence technique. Open. When Naruto activated this technique, the water dragon had already opened its ferocious mouth and swallowed him. But the next second, a red cover appeared on Naruto's body. This force formed a protection around him, and the violent wind chakra hit the water dragon bullet. The power of the water dragon bomb used by Zabuza is slightly stronger than that of Kakashi, and the fact that there is sea nearby makes the power of this technique increased a lot. But despite this, the water dragon couldn't cause any harm to Naruto at all. After the water dragon disappeared, Zabuza saw the yellow-haired man with red chakra gushing out of his body and his hair standing slightly up. He also vaguely heard a sound similar to the dong 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 of drums. The moment Naruto took a step, the ground sank deeply, rubble scattered everywhere, and his figure disappeared from the spot. Zabuza could only hear this kid's voice. This punch of mine took 12 years of practice. I asked you how to stop it. Chapter 49. Okay, you just want to be Uchiha Shaoyan, right? Naruto threw a serious punch at Zabuza, with blood and energy wrapped around his arm, and he blasted at the opponent. The hair of the two people facing each other was blown by the strong wind like fluttering seaweed. Zabuza had no time to fight back, so he had to raise the beheading sword to block his chest. Sasuke, who was standing by, was nervous when he saw this scene. He was worried that Naruto would break his equipment with one punch, so he subconsciously blurted out, "No way. No." Bang. The fist hit the beheading sword, causing Zabuza's body, which was blocking, to move back a certain distance. The blow just now made his shoulder numb. And under Naruto's punch, the beheading sword actually began to crack. Zabuza discovered the marks on his weapon and his eyelids twitched. Damn. Who the hell is this kid? He actually has so much strength. You must never confront the other party head-on. Zabuza has encountered many powerful enemies in his life, and has also been in situations where he was at a disadvantage in a head-on confrontation. He knows very well that in the current situation he absolutely cannot confront the opponent head-on. The strong smell of blood on this kid just now was enough to tell. He was able to have such great strength because he used forbidden techniques, right? Have you risked your life to fight with me? A respectable opponent. Zabuza retreated and tried to create some distance between himself and his opponent, but Naruto, who had already used his ultimate skill, would not let him go. He grabbed Zabuza's clothes with one hand and started to attack him frantically with the other hand. Zabuza was caught and had no way to escape. He thought of the kid's nonsense before and became angry again. It is good. I wonder how long you can last with this forbidden technique. Then the fight between the two turned into a back and forth fight. During the battle, both sides kept coughing up blood, accompanied by the sound of broken bones. After more than 10 seconds, Zabuza found that his punches were a little heavy and his body had multiple fractures. Look at this yellow-haired kid. Not only did he act as if nothing had happened, he even became more courageous as the fight went on. What the hell is this? Mr. Zabuza, who was hiding in the dark, saw that the situation was not good and finally jumped out to provide support. Ice escape secret technique. 1,000 killings water flying. A large number of Senbon were thrown at Naruto's feet. Naruto, who was fighting with Zabuza, subconsciously let go of Zabuza and dodged to the side. Naruto was getting a little angry at this point. Mud. Where are my teammates? The team fight has started, hurry up and catch up. Bai suddenly appeared and quickly formed hand seals with one hand, then began to perform ninjutsu in the direction of Naruto. Although Zabuza's feelings were revealed by the other party, he was very grateful to the child, but he had to know that this was a mission between ninjas. To be honest, Bai didn't want to hurt the other party, he just wanted them to give up the mission. Ice escape secret technique. Magic mirror ice crystal. At the same time, Bai used ninjutsu to form several ice walls around Naruto and Zabuza. These square ice walls were suspended in the air, and their smooth surfaces were like a mirror. Naruto could even see his own face in them. For a moment, Naruto felt like he was playing with a funhouse mirror at an amusement park. But then again, Bai's ninjutsu is a bit like a formation. But this trick is of no use to me at all. Didn't that guy Bai notice that I was using the space gate just now? Just when Naruto was distracted, Zabuza saw Haku making a move, and dragged his aching body to quickly distance himself from Naruto, then formed seals with his hands and disappeared on the spot. Sasuke saw this scene through the gap in the ice wall and a wanton smile appeared on his face. Naruto. Leave that enemy just now to me. After hearing this, Naruto subconsciously looked up at the sky. It's cloudy today and there's no sun. Why is Sasuke drifting again? Naruto slowly raised his hand and raised his middle finger in Sasuke's direction. Shish. Thousands of weapons were shot out simultaneously from the ice walls on all sides. Naruto showed disdain on his face, and Sasuke's dodging movement flashed through his mind. Then he moved his feet slightly and began to move among the Senbon. Naruto performed a series of difficult moves such as front flip, back flip, side flip, one-handed Thomas spin, etc. If we don't look at those Senbon, it can be said that this operation is even more impressive than Sasuke's. After just a few operations, Naruto was pierced by the Senbon sword and turned into a hedgehog. It can be said that the connection was very accurate. Jingle. Naruto bit off a few Senbon on his shoulders, feeling very angry. Really? I can't play Sasuke's fighting style myself. Bai hid in the ice mirror, feeling dazed. No. What is this guy doing? He remembered that his accuracy in throwing the 1,000 books shouldn't be that good, right? Judging from the thousands of swords scattered on the ground, 90% of them hit the child. The remaining 10% is still wasted. And how come this kid looks like nothing happened despite having thousands of stab wounds? Although he couldn't figure out why this guy was okay, Bai could still see that his condition was not as good as before. Are there any side effects of forbidden techniques? Bai said secretly in his heart, and then began to persuade Naruto. Give up the mission. I don't want to kill you. Naruto pulled out the Senbon from his body and realized that his wind style. Blood violence technique was about to end, so he immediately created a portal and went in. The white brain that had just started to talk got stuck. The next second, Naruto appeared in front of Kakashi. Originally, Naruto wanted to defeat Pale alone, but when he thought about a certain white-haired Chudo watching the entire battle from the sidelines, he felt very unbalanced. Change, I'll take a break. Naruto's sudden appearance left Kakashi completely stunned. And seeing that the child looked like a bloody hedgehog, he wanted to ask what happened. As a result, before he could even say a second word, he was pushed into the light gate by Naruto. Kakashi then appeared within the range of Bai's ninjutsu. Kakashi. Uzumaki Naruto, thank you so much. Kakashi, who was forced to join the battle, sighed and slowly pulled up his eye mask, revealing his 3 Magatama Sharingan. That's it. Let the kid rest. He also knew that after Naruto used that jutsu, he would be weak for a period of time. Plus, I am their leader. It would be a bit unreasonable not to take action. Naruto stood where he was and quickly cleaned off the thousands of books on his body. He casually took out a sofa and lay down on it. He then took out a life potion and drank it, ton, before the side effects of wind style. Blood violence technique came on. After they were done, Naruto still felt a little itchy on his back, so he waved his hand to signal Sakura to come forward. Feeling a little guilty about asking his friend's wife to treat his injuries alone, Naruto immediately changed the name to Sakura. Well, from now on I'll call her brother. Brother Ying, help me remove the 1,000 books on my back. Sakura. Open black lens bracket. What did he call me? Close black lens bracket. Damn Naruto. Sakura's face turned pale, but she found that the guy was covered with senbon, so she went forward to help. This is the only way she can contribute to the team, right? Sakura was a little hesitant at first when she pulled out the senbon, but the moment she saw the senbon, the guy's wound healed immediately. This once again refreshed Sakura's cognition. After treating his injuries, Naruto collapsed on the sofa, holding a cup of milk tea in his left hand and taking a sip from time to time. Then he heard Sakura ask himself hesitantly. Naruto. What is the Xuanzang ruler? Uzumaki Naruto. Seeing Naruto's puzzled look, Sakura pursed her lips, glanced at Sasuke who was fighting fiercely with Zabuza, and continued. What did Sasuke just shout about? Zan Zhang Kai. Then he rushed forward. There was a complex look in Sakura's eyes. She had clearly noticed the obsession that Sasuke revealed when he was talking about this strange ruler. This is something Sakura can't handle. So, a beautiful girl like me is not as attractive as a broken ruler when I am by your side. Naruto's teeth started to ache after hearing what Sakura said. So Sasuke wants Zabuza's beheading sword. Good. You want to be Uchiha Shaoyan, right? Chapter 50 Zabuza. Bye, you smell so good. After resting for a few minutes, Naruto found that his injuries were almost healed, so he immediately created a space gate and flashed to the battle site between Sasuke and Zabuza. Ever since Zabuza and Naruto started a turn-based battle just now, there is not a single piece of good flesh on his entire body. Not only was his right hand fractured, but 3 ribs were also broken. The worst thing was that the boy kept hitting him on the waist. Every time he took a breath of air, he felt pain all over his body. He finally got away from the battle and had a break, but that Uchiha brat ran up to him again. Moreover, this Uchiha brat refused to play physical techniques with him. He just kept throwing the ninja tools on him at him as if they were free, and there were even detonating tags mixed in them. Not only that, after throwing the ninja tools, he also suddenly performed ninjutsu on the side. This fighting style really made Zabuza a little confused. Let's not talk about the monster-like kid in front. The ninja tools thrown by this Uchiha are more than the reward for this mission. Judging from the way he took things out of his arms, it was obvious that he had no intention of stopping. Is this kid sick? Even if you have money, you can't waste it like this. Even in his many years of ninja career, he had never encountered such a weird fighting style. Zabuza cursed this prodigal son while fleeing in a panic under the rain of shurikens. He had just dodged a wave, and then he saw the familiar yellow-haired figure again. Rough. Zabuza cursed on the spot. See. A sound of breaking air came from Zabuza's ears. Before he looked up to see what it was, he heard a bang, and the ninja tool turned into that Uchiha prodigal's thing. You, not bad. Sasuke spat out coldly, turned over and kicked the opponent's wrist holding the knife. Zabuza only felt his wrist numb, and the beheading sword flew out. When he turned around to look for the little devil, he was already standing not far away and picking up the beheading sword. Less than 3 seconds after Naruto arrived at the battlefield, he saw Sasuke beating the low-health Zabuza, then he snatched the sword and laughed wildly with his head raised. Look at the ground again. At this time, the place where the two were fighting was filled with ninja tools, and it was even difficult to find a place to stand. Naruto's expression instantly wrinkled. This kid used up all the sealing scrolls he had. Life is not going well. Zabuza is already low on health. Chunchin is using a cannon to kill a mosquito. Naruto now understands why the couple in the original story had such a difficult time. So, did they create Chidori Ryu and Senbon in the later period because they had no money to buy ninja tools? Zabuza knelt on one knee with his hands hanging at his sides and blood gushing out of his mouth. Bai, who was fighting with Konoha's technicians on equal terms, became extremely anxious after discovering Zabuza's situation. Please, please stop us. We abandoned the mission. Please don't hurt Mr. Zabuza. Bai immediately cancelled the ninjutsu, took off his equipment and appeared in front of Kakashi. He reached out and slowly took off the mask, revealing his exquisite face, which surprised Kakashi. Just now during the battle, Kakashi threw out a bottle of perfume in order to capture the opponent's trace. He didn't even realize that his actions just now added a touch of charm to the woman in front of him. That's it. Kakashi glanced at the man not far away and nodded slightly. In peacetime, when ninjas from several villages come into conflict while on a mission, as long as one side openly gives up the mission, the other side will generally not kill them. Seeing that none of his team members were injured, Kakashi nodded slightly to agree to their request. Naruto, Sasuke. You can stop now. After hearing what Kakashi said, Sasuke gripped the beheading sword a little tighter. It doesn't matter whether this guy dies or not. But the Xuanzang ruler must be mine. Bai quickly ran to Zabuza's side and helped him up, his eyes full of worry. You, what are you doing? Zabuza turned his head, shrugged his nose, then looked at Bai and asked with difficulty. You are just my tool, why should you make decisions for me? I'm sorry, Mr. Zabuza. Excuse me for taking the initiative, but this mission, if you continue, you will die. Bai put Zabuza's hand on his neck, tears already glistening in his eyes. The members of Class 7 standing nearby all looked like they were enjoying themselves. Sakura in particular looked extremely excited. So this is love. It's so beautiful. And that girl is so beautiful. She turned her head and looked at Sasuke as she said this. But Sasuke was wiping his new weapon with a cloth at the moment and had no time to pay attention to Sakura. Kakashi was watching the two flirting from the side, and he even responded to the girl Sakura, which was rare. Yes. This is youth, love. He blurted out those two words subconsciously, then immediately changed his words when he felt something was wrong. Naruto's pupils trembled violently. I was afraid that Kakashi would do one of his signature moves in the next second. It seems that people have a subtle influence on each other. Naruto felt a little scared when he thought of this. So far so good. I didn't go looking for the green melon rind at the beginning. Seeing Sakura constantly sighing with Kakashi, he really couldn't help but interrupt the two of them. Just as Sakura began to imagine the happy future days of the couple in love in her mind, and also imagined her future days with Sasuke, she couldn't help but began to smile foolishly. Just at this moment, Naruto's voice rang out, breaking the girl's fantasy. That guy is a man. Sakura. Kakashi. Sasuke. The three of them looked at Naruto at the same time, then looked at Shiro in shock. Sakura glanced at Shiro's chest, then back at her own, clenching her fists through gritted teeth. When she thought about Naruto calling her brother Sakura just now, the veins on her forehead began to throb. Naruto, this guy, distinguishes between men and women based on their chests. Open black lens bracket hateful, Close black lens bracket. Doesn't he know that saying this really hurts girls' feelings? Also, I haven't started growing yet. Open black lens bracket. Everything will be fine in the future. Close black lens bracket. Sakura took a deep breath and said to Naruto angrily, Naruto, it's too much for you to say that to a girl. Kakashi nodded beside him. Even though he felt that what Naruto said made some sense. That, I am indeed a man. Bai heard that several people had misunderstood his gender and explained timidly. Everyone present except Naruto was petrified for 3 seconds. After a while, Sakura twisted her stiff neck and screamed. You're kidding me. How can a boy be so cute? Kakashi and Sasuke nodded in agreement. Naruto spread his hands, he couldn't explain this thing either. We can go now. After Haku and Zabuza argued for a while, he looked at Kakashi and asked pleadingly. Naruto didn't wait for Kakashi to agree, and stood up and shouted first. This knife belongs to us. If you kiss him, I'll let you go. Kakashi, Sasuke, Sakura. Zabuza, who was about to faint, suddenly widened his eyes. I don't know what he is thinking at this moment. It is good. Bai's face turned slightly red, she closed her eyes, quickly tapped Zabuza's face, then lowered her head and dared not look at anyone else. Kakashi and the others were petrified again. They think that the relationship between Zabuza and Haku is hard to imagine. Naruto waved his hand and drove the two away with great disgust. But when they left, Naruto suddenly heard Zabuza weakly say, Bai, what's that smell on you? It smells so good. Chapter 51. I have a special way to open my eyes. Bai supported Zabuza and they walked with difficulty in the fog, and Sakura's face turned slightly red. Although this is a love story between two men, she always felt it was very sweet when she saw the height difference between Bai and Zabuza, and when Bai kissed Zabuza on the cheek just now. But after a long time, Sakura's head was about to smoke and she just couldn't accept such a forbidden love. Between men, there shouldn't be any children, right? I don't understand. Sakura muttered something to show her shock. Kakashi's eyes returned to their indifferent look and he spoke indifferently. This kind of thing is not uncommon in the ninja world. It is said that you, Naruto, no, are Uchiha Madara and the first Hokage serious. Sasuke, who sensed the element, stopped wiping the Xuanzang ruler and looked at Kakashi with a puzzled look. Kakashi realized that there was an Uchiha next to him and immediately kept silent. Even though the Uchiha clan was destroyed, it would be better not to destroy the image of their ancestors in Sasuke's heart. Sakura had a gossipy look on her face, then she thought of Haku and Zabuza just now, and then looked at Sasuke and Naruto. Her expression suddenly froze and her little face turned pale. She secretly grabbed Naruto with a mysterious expression. Brother Ying, what are you doing? Don't call me. Oh, forget it. Sakura wanted to correct the way Naruto addressed her, but then she thought that this guy probably wouldn't listen to her, so she gave up. Naruto, I told you that you already have Hinata. You should understand what I mean, right? Sakura kept winking at Naruto as she spoke. Naruto. When Naruto heard what Sakura said, his expression twisted. Mud. Look at your determined look. No wonder Sasuke has no interest in you now. Naruto was silent for a long time, then pointed at the beheading sword in Sasuke's hand. I think you should think about this first. Why is the beheading sword more magical than you? I won't stay like this forever. Sakura looked down, then glanced at Sasuke who was gently stroking the beheading sword, and secretly encouraged herself in her heart. Everything will get better. Let's go and send the client back. Our mission should be completed this time. Kakashi subconsciously reached for his ninja tool bag, and when he touched the book, he abruptly stopped the urge to read and study. The three little ones nodded and followed Dasna in the direction of his home. Dasna was in a complicated mood, but no one cared what he was thinking. Anyway, after sending him back, the mission of Class 7 on this trip will be completed, and they will have to consider where to travel next. In the evening, They had a meal at Old Man Dazna's house, and then Naruto built a 3-story villa on the edge of the forest as a temporary residence for everyone. Kakashi and Sakura didn't know how to complain. Which ninja's temporary residence has a swimming pool? And it's only one night. I really feel like I've been at a loss. What? Kakashi sat at the coffee table and drank a cup of hot tea comfortably, feeling all the fatigue caused by today's battle disappear. He glanced at the 3 little ones and said quietly, "Why don't we guide you in your practice here first?" Sasuke sat on the table, resting his chin on one hand and turning the pages of a book with the other. Kakashi's words were exactly what he wanted. He had just seen Xiao Yan learn the 3,000 Thunders, and combined with what Naruto had said last time about magnetism and electricity, he felt like he had got some clues. Moreover, they all possess the attributes of lightning and fire chakra. Sasuke now feels that Xiao Yan in this book is simply another himself. Ha ha. I have found a way to become stronger. Uchiha Itachi, you killed your clansmen, your father and your mother, you are not worthy of being a son. Wait. I, Uchiha Sasuke, will kill you. After Sasuke finished his daily scolding of Itachi, he turned the pages of the book and immersed himself in it. After looking for a while, he suddenly frowned. Naruto, can you make me a black robe? Naruto was speechless when he heard this. BYD, you really want to be Uchiha Xiao Yan, right? Sasuke. I think you should read less of this book. Everything in it is fiction. Naruto pursed his lips, feeling that he was just being pretentious. Why did he let Sasuke read the book for no reason? He should have thought of it earlier. Sasuke, at his middle school age, can't watch this kind of thing. He is now beginning to worry that if this continues, when Sasuke sees the old man of 6 paths, he will have to shout, Lu Dao Laodang. My fate is determined by me, not by God. Today I will go against God. You are nothing but the inner demon on my path of cultivation. Break it for me. Snapped. Naruto covered his face, the scene was too raw. No. We can't let Sasuke continue like this. Guide him to develop the Sharingan first, instead of spending all his time doing things like the burning technique and 3,000 Thunders. This kid can ask himself about Xiao Yan's skills several times a day. Horse riding. Isn't this simply a disease? If I knew this, would I still be able to sit here and chat with you? Moreover, I don't have the attributes of lightning and fire chakra. Cough cough. That's Sasuke. I have a way to help you get 3 Magatama. Kakashi and Sakura, who were drinking tea, looked at Naruto in shock. Neither of them could figure out why Naruto knew how to open the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. Sasuke, on the other hand, looked calm, sitting in his seat and uttered a few words lightly. Tell me. Sasuke was still somewhat interested in what Naruto said. You know, compared to studying fire release and lightning release, the 3 Magam Sharingan is indeed the fastest way to enhance your strength. The former are long-term development routes, and Sasuke knows that he cannot be impatient. Naruto glanced at Sakura, his eyes a little vague. Well, Sakura-kun. We need to talk about some things between men. You go out first. Sakura tilted her head, a look of question mark on her face. Didn't I just say I would help Sasuke open the 3 Magatama? Why did we start talking about topics between men? Thinking about what happened between Zabuza and Haku today, Sakura was still a little wary of Naruto. Naruto wouldn't do anything to let Hinata down, right? Although Sakura was confused, she still left obediently based on the principle of trusting her teammates. But when she closed the door, she took one last look at Naruto and had a bad feeling in her heart. Naruto, how are you going to open Sasuke's eyes? Kakashi yawned, not taking Naruto's words to heart at all. After all, if there was such a thing, why didn't the Uchiha clan develop it before you? He just thought Naruto was joking again. Sasuke's attitude was extremely serious. Because ever since he knew Naruto, this guy has never lied to him. If you say you can become stronger, then you can really become stronger. Naruto stole a glance at the door, then mysteriously took out a piece of equipment from the system. Chapter 52 I will turn all your laughter into screams. Kakashi opened one eye slightly with a very strange expression. As an experienced reader of Xiaolu Bei, I naturally know what Naruto has in his hand. He usually sees many female protagonists wearing this kind of clothing. But the key point is, are you asking Sasuke to wear the JK skirt you took out now? Kakashi stole a glance at Sasuke, and couldn't help but think of him wearing a short skirt. Hiss. No. My eyes are going blind. Kakashi didn't dare to think any further after he had only imagined half of it, and his body shivered uncontrollably. The look he gave Naruto became increasingly strange. Sasuke stared at the cloth in Naruto's hand in silence for a long time, his face turning blue and white. Although he is not as experienced as Kakashi. But you can also see that this piece of cloth is very improper. Also, isn't this short skirt for girls? After a while Sasuke looked up and said to Naruto, "Naruto, this is not funny." There was some anger in his tone. Whenever Kakashi takes out this thing, he will give the other person a foot higher than him. Sasuke, trust me. Put it on and you'll open your eyes. Naruto said seriously, his expression was extremely sincere at this moment. After saying that, he solemnly placed the short skirt and over-the-knee stockings on the table, then turned around and sighed softly. We've known each other for so long, didn't expect that this is how I feel in your mind. Have you forgotten what you said to me? I'm willing to do anything as long as I can become stronger. Naruto's tone was very sad, and after listening to it, Sasuke's mind began to recall the memories of the two of them spending time together over the years. Kakashi noticed that Naruto's shoulders were shaking slightly. This guy is obviously trying to hold back his laughter. Sasuke looked at the things on the table with great embarrassment, his face showing a conflicted expression. He did trust Naruto very much, but he knew the boy's temper better. Who knows if this guy made himself laugh at himself by dressing up as a woman. The risk was too great, and Sasuke didn't dare to listen to Naruto and change rashly. To put it bluntly, Sasuke didn't dare to gamble. 3 Magatama Sharingan. It smells really good. Finally, he thought about it in his mind, gritted his teeth and said, everything is for the sake of becoming stronger. Naruto, I trust you for once. But. Sasuke paused here, pointed at something on the table, and looked fierce. You two must change too. In order to prevent Naruto from making fun of him, he decided to drag these two guys into it. If everyone wears this thing, there shouldn't be too many problems, right? Kakashi. Naruto was slightly stunned when he heard Sasuke's words, then turned around and patted his shoulder. Do not worry. I know you have concerns. It's okay. To help you open your eyes, Kakashi-sensei and I will change with you. Naruto smiled brightly, looking extremely reliable, while squeezing Kakashi's shoulders. Wait, Naruto, is this method of yours really reliable? Kakashi suddenly spoke at this time, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Naruto with a righteous look on his face. Hateful. Kakashi-sensei, please don't underestimate the bond between us. Kakashi, whose mind had not yet recovered, was forced to agree. The main reason was that Kakashi noticed that there was something wrong with Naruto's eyes. At this moment, the two of them made eye contact, and after a brief 2-second exchange, they nodded at the same time. In order to reassure Sasuke, Naruto took out 2 more sets, gave one to Kakashi, and took another set for himself. Sasuke finally felt relieved when he heard Naruto say this. They all wore short skirts, so Naruto wouldn't play tricks on him, right? The 3 of them blushed while holding their JK skirts and over-the-knee stockings. Then they looked at each other, without saying a word, and ran to their respective rooms to change clothes. After changing into a short skirt, Sasuke looked down at the short skirt and the black stockings that just reached his knees, and his expression instantly frowned. Even my brain started to feel dizzy. What on earth am I doing? At this moment, Sasuke's whole body was resisting and his hand that was holding the door handle could not move. After standing there for a few minutes, Sasuke decided not to look under his skirt anymore. As long as he kept his eyes forward, he could deceive himself that he was not wearing a short skirt. Worried that he would be laughed at by the other two if he went out first, Sasuke shouted to the outside of the door. "Have you guys changed yet?" "All right." After hearing the two's answers, Sasuke immediately felt better. After all, Naruto and teacher Kakashi also experienced this humiliation together. "Okay, let's come out together." Sasuke stood by the door and shouted inside. After getting the response from the two, 3 door push sounds were heard. Sasuke blushed slightly, covered his skirt with his hands, and walked into the living room shyly. However, the moment Sasuke saw Naruto and teacher Kakashi, his brain completely froze and his mind went blank. Naruto and Kakashi didn't change into short skirts and were still wearing the same outfits as before. At this moment, time seems to stand still. The two glanced at Sasuke, who was wearing a short skirt and stockings, and his shoulders began to shake wildly uncontrollably. It even makes a kukuku sound from time to time. It can be said that they were very considerate of Sasuke by not laughing out loud on the spot. Sasuke looked at the two guys expressionlessly without any reaction. He walked to the table woodenly and picked up his Zanzhong-kai. Sheila. Then a thunderous sound was heard in the living room, and Sasuke raised the Xuanzhong ruler high and swung it at the two of them. "You two. Damn guy. I will turn all your laughter into screams. Go to hell." Arcs of electricity flashed all over the furious Sasuke's body, and even the weapon in his hand was covered with a layer of electric light. Sasuke didn't even realize that his current condition was many times stronger than before. However, he couldn't care less now. He just wanted the white-haired and yellow-haired creatures in front of him to die under his ruler. And many more. "Here you go, idiot. Calm down first. Didn't you realize that you have mastered the lightning release ninjutsu?" Seeing Sasuke raising his knife to chop him, Naruto hurriedly began to persuade the child. Kakashi also stepped forward and began to persuade. "Yes. He has indeed become much stronger. Kukukuku." After hearing what the two said, Sasuke's expression relaxed a lot. He put down the Xuanzhong ruler he was holding high, and began to feel the power in his body. Only then did he discover that the lightning chakra in his body was not only flowing without any obstruction, but also became extremely smooth. The most important thing is, finally no more burnt hair. Sheila. Sasuke, flashing with electric light, moved slightly and was surprised to find that his speed was so fast that it left an afterimage. Naruto noticed that Sasuke's expression had eased a lot, and he began to praise Sasuke again. "Too strong. Give it to me, idiot. You are indeed the most powerful of the Uchiha clan." Kakashi nodded in agreement. "Really? You are the strongest Uchiha I have ever seen." After hearing the two people's praise, Sasuke's mouth corners moved up and down several times, and he couldn't suppress it at all. "Naruto actually praised me. Has he finally recognized my ability? And the praise from the genius Jonin, Kakashi teacher. They actually said that they were the strongest Uchiha." Sasuke himself attaches great importance to family honor. Now that Naruto and Kakashi both praised him as the Uchiha clan and praised him as the strongest in the clan, he could no longer suppress the ecstasy in his heart. He put his hands on his hips, slightly closed his legs, shook his skirt a few times, and then began to laugh wildly. "Ha ha 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 ha. Of course. We, the Uchiha clan, are the strongest." Naruto felt that the heat was not enough, so he conjured up a sailor suit and pink girl's underwear, walked up to Sasuke and winked at him. "Sasuke, look. You just put on a short skirt and you already mastered the lightning release. If I change into this set, won't I just open the 3 Magatama?" Sasuke rolled his eyes and felt that what Naruto said seemed to make sense. After hesitating for a moment, he agreed. "Since I'm already wearing a short skirt, I don't mind wearing a top." Outside the door, Sakura sat at the door, listening to the noises coming from the room, unable to imagine what was going on inside. She heard Sasuke shouting something about Uchiha being the strongest. And Naruto said something like success. Could it be? Sasuke succeeded. I eavesdropped at the door for a while and found that there was no movement inside, so I decided to go in and take a look. Sakura gently turned the doorknob and opened the door, and then the girls saw an unforgettable scene. Chapter 53. Just tell me whether you have opened 3 Magatama. At this time, Sasuke leaned forward slightly, with his hands behind his back, holding his pink underwear upside down, his face slightly flushed with his brows drooping. Kakashi was holding the same set of pink panties in his hands and making meaningless noises. Naruto was holding the sailor uniform in front of Sasuke to compare the size, and his shoulders twitched from time to time. As Sakura pushed the door open, the scene in the room instantly froze at this moment. When the 3 men saw Sakura, their pupils dilated and they stopped whatever they were doing, as if they were all frozen. Sakura was completely stunned when she saw this scene. The boy I admired was being manipulated by Kakashi and Naruto. From the girl's perspective, Naruto seemed to be saying to her, "Sakura, your man is very moist. What's even more outrageous is, Sasuke even changed into girl's underwear. Still pink. What the hell are you doing?" "I don't know why." Sakura felt that Sasuke's face was a little red, and he looked a little shy. Open black lens bracket damn. Close black lens bracket. Naruto, I'm going to kill you. You told me earlier that you wouldn't have any thoughts about Sasuke. What on earth are you and Kakashi-sensei doing to Sasuke? The girl's mentality was first shocked and confused, and then turned into regret and anger. Now she was quite sure. There is a big problem between Naruto and Sasuke. So is Kakashi-sensei. He's still holding that kind of thing. Sasuke's face was frozen, and his eyes were spinning wildly. When Sakura opened the door, his Sharingan opened uncontrollably. The double Magatama kept spinning in his eyes, and as Sakura spoke, Sasuke's double Magatama Sharingan turned into a triple Magatama Sharingan. But he has no time to focus on the Sharingan now. Wearing women's clothes was very embarrassing, and he finally overcame his psychological barriers and tried it. As a result, he was seen by his teammates. It's so embarrassing. Sasuke didn't know how to face Sakura in the future. Think about what Kakashi and Naruto did just now. Rough. These 2 guys were laughing at themselves the whole time, they never stopped. Damn. They will definitely laugh at me about this in the future. Thinking of this, he felt a hot current rushing to his forehead and his vision became blurred. Destroy it. This world should not exist. Boom. Unable to accept the fact, Sakura quickly closed the door. She stood outside the door, took a deep breath, and clapped her hands to her cheeks. No. I must have fallen into Kakashi-sensei's genjutsu. How could Sasuke do something like that? Ha 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 ha. I must have been under an illusion. Sakura murmured, sitting on the steps at the door, slowly hugging her knees and burying her head. 3 seconds later, the girl felt a sore nose and then burst into tears. Woo 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 woo. Why? What's wrong with me? Why would Sasuke rather be like Naruto than even look at me? Because I'm average. Woo 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 woo. Sakura cried even louder when she thought of Naruto saying that she was worse than a broken sword. In the room, Sasuke took off the pink underwear he had just put on with one hand, his eyes slightly opened, and his aura suddenly changed. Where is the most? Is this how you open your eyes? I'm going to kill both of you. He gritted his teeth, picked up the Xuanzang ruler and started swinging it. Sasuke wielded the cloth-wrapped beheading sword, instantly creating a strong gust of air in the room. Naruto and Kakashi were sweating profusely. You, just tell me whether you have opened your eyes or not. Shut up. Today, I will kill both of you. The furious Sasuke no longer believed the lies that Naruto said. He finally figured it out. This yellow-haired guy just wants to laugh at himself. And the white-haired one too. Sasuke swung the Xuanzhuji in his hand, which was shining with electricity, at Naruto's waist. But at the moment of hitting, the feeling was not as imagined. Bang! Naruto suddenly exploded into a ball of smoke, and Kakashi, who was standing next to him, almost popped his eyes out. Horse riding. Also using shadow clones. Why didn't you tell me earlier that we had eye contact just now? Good. Uzumaki Naruto, you're playing like this, right? Uzumaki Naruto. The disappearance of Naruto once again added fuel to Sasuke's anger. Sasuke is shirtless, wearing black stockings that go below his knees and a JK miniskirt. The style of the painting can be said to be extremely evil. He pointed the Shuenjong ruler at Kakashi and looked coldly at the white-haired Nakadashi with his Scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan. And many more. Sasuke. This idea was Naruto's. It has nothing to do with me. Kakashi said this with a guilty look on his face, while putting all the blame on Naruto. This sounds like he is the innocent one. So, why didn't you change into a short skirt just now? When Sasuke said this, he subconsciously glanced at his skirt and felt like he was going to have a cerebral hemorrhage. Cuckoo. Ha 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 ha. Sorry, ha 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 ha. Kakashi glanced at Sasuke's current appearance and this time he finally couldn't help laughing. JK Sasuke held the Shuenjong ruler and started fighting Kakashi directly in the villa. The entire villa began to shake during the fight between the two. Naruto hid in a nearby tree, secretly thanking his luck. Fortunately, I was one step ahead and left my shadow clone in the villa while my real body climbed out through the window first. Otherwise, he would be too embarrassed to bully Sasuke in this state. Kakashi-sensei, please forgive me. This is the last time. Looking at the villa that was almost demolished by Sasuke, Naruto decided not to stay here any longer, and immediately opened the space gate and returned to his home. At night, Naruto lay on the bed, silently prayed for teacher Kakashi for a second, and his consciousness sank into the sealed space. As soon as he came in, he found that the big fox was staring at him. Glancing at the barbecue grill in front of the big fox, Naruto discovered that less than half of the meat had been eaten. Big fox, are you in a bad mood? Naruto shrank his neck and walked carefully, but no matter where he went, the big fox's terrifying eyes were always staring at him. After a long while, Naruto finally couldn't stand being stared at by this guy anymore, so he looked up and shouted at the big fox. Big fox. What's up with you? Naruto thought back to what he had done during this period of time and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Because Mr. Ju's special training required a combat mission, Big Fox gave him 3 days off. Moreover, in the battle with Zabuza, he was definitely the best of the game. I guess I haven't provoked this fox recently. The man and the fox confronted each other for nearly 10 minutes. The big fox didn't speak, while Naruto was reminiscing. After a while, Ju Lama finally spoke. Little devil. The book you gave to that Uchiha brat today. It paused here, raised its head slightly, glared at Naruto with its nose, and then continued. I just want to know who the Uchiha Xiao Yan you are talking about is. I have no interest in that book at all. No. What is this big fox doing? Naruto felt sick when he heard the big fox's words. Mud. There is already a person who is obsessed with novels. If the vixen I raise at home is also addicted to novels. He simply couldn't imagine what this big orange cat would do in the future. What a crime. Chapter 54. Help. Has anyone learned how to use multiple clones? Naruto was very reluctant to let his fox read those novels. There was already an Uchiha Xiao Yan out there, and he didn't dare to imagine what his fox would become in the future. But the sour look of a certain vixen almost poked his spine. It seems to be saying, You Uzumaki Naruto, this vixen has been with you for more than 12 years. Now that you have a new person, have you forgotten the old one? Naruto thought about it and felt that he couldn't favor one over the other, so he directly threw tens of thousands of novels from the system in front of Kurama. I even threw a lot of comics to Ju Lama. Although the book was a little small for the big fox, Naruto believed that this guy should be able to solve it. I just hope that when the style of the ninja world is ruined, the old man of the 6 paths in heaven won't blame me. The jealous vixen's attitude became much better after she saw the pile of books. He kept emphasizing that he didn't want to see the things humans saw, and Naruto didn't believe a word of it. After that, Naruto stayed in the village for another 3 days, during which time he went to the Hyuga family to provoke his mother's family. He went out of the main gate to pick up his girlfriend. Uzumaki Naruto's sudden return to the village scared the ninja team who had just started their mission, for they were afraid that this guy would leave his clone in the village to complete the mission. Horse riding. It's been less than 2 days since you took on the mission. Why did you come back again? So, all the Jonin jointly reported the genin Uzumaki Naruto for returning to the village without permission during the mission, which was a violation and he must be sent back to complete the mission. Naruto and his girlfriend had only been together for 2 days when they were visited by the Anbu. They said that he had to break the rules, and if he didn't leave the village to do the task, he would be fined. Horse riding. You are just making things difficult for me, Uzumaki Naruto. There was a yellow-haired man standing at the gate of Konoha village, cursing and swearing. All he opened his mouth was greeting the Konoha Hokage, and all he closed his mouth was insulting the Konoha villagers. It's really bullying. I haven't seen Hinata for a long time. What's wrong with going back to the village to date her for a few days? The guard at the entrance of the village stared ahead expressionlessly, completely ignoring the boy's existence. In desperation, Naruto politely raised his middle finger to the gate of Konoha, then created a space door and disappeared at the gate of Konoha village. Everyone who saw this scene breathed a sigh of relief. Naruto actually wanted to stay for a few more days before going back. After all, he didn't know whether the idiot had calmed down, and whether his teacher Kakashi was still alive. To be honest, I offended 3 people at once. He still feels a little insecure. After passing through the light gate and returning to the temporary residence of Team 7, he found that only one wall was left of the 3-story villa he had built before. From the scorching marks around it and the remains of shuriken scattered all over the ground, it could be seen that the battle at that time was very fierce. Due to the battle, the previous villa has been destroyed, and now the other 3 members of Team 7 have set up a tent nearby. After looking at Sasuke and the other 2 from afar, Naruto began to feel nervous. He always felt that this kid was still angry. After you sighed, Naruto, who was hiding in the dark, created a clone and planned to let him go forward to explore the way. But the moment he saw his clone, Naruto was stunned. The clone was seen wearing a white midwinter robe and a white cloth on his head. Seeing this, Naruto himself wanted to turn around and run away. I asked you to go up and explore the way, not to ask you to shout, "Long live Allah." Naruto was still comforting himself in his heart at this time. Maybe the clone's outfit is just to say, with a piece of cloth on my head, I'm the richest in the ninja world. He shouldn't do anything outrageous, right? Just as he was thinking this, he heard the shadow clone's eyes light up and shout happily. Main body, give me some TNT and a backpack. I'm defending myself. Another AK, a whole rifle. We will become bigger and stronger and create greater glory. Naruto. No. Are you serious? Let's not talk about why this clone of mine is dressed so strangely. But isn't it a bit too much to ask me for a backpack and TNT? Besides, you have to create a shadow clone to defend against Jimao's body. Naruto, who was suddenly silenced by his own clone, seemed to understand why the villagers of Konoha village were so malicious towards him. After a long while, Naruto finally opened his mouth and spoke bitterly. I think you're being a little extreme. Shut up. I won't allow you to say that about yourself. The clone's expression was filled with anger, and he was very dissatisfied with what the original had said. I just want to play with TNT, what's wrong with that? Besides, after that thing is adapted to the rules, its power may not be that great. What the clone said does make some sense. What if Uchiha Shao Sasuke is still angry, he can still let the clone block it. Naruto thought about it and finally took out a black school bag and a TNT from his backpack, and even thoughtfully took out a lighter. But I didn't give this guy any AK rifle. After adapting to the rules, the TNT is no longer square like the sealed space. It becomes like the time bomb in Hong Kong movies, and its size is just right to fit into a backpack. I just don't know how powerful it is. At the time, Naruto was too young, and he was aware of his own suicidal character, so he didn't dare to take out this thing to play with it. Maybe after adapting to the rules, the power of TNT may not be that great, but it shouldn't be a big problem to kill a few years older myself. When the clone saw what Naruto took out, he excitedly started fiddling with it. When he took the lighter, he looked at the original body with contempt. I said, "Entity, what era is it and you are still playing with traditional TNT? We are in the ninja world. We must make good use of the power of ninja." After saying that, the clone waved his hand and threw the lighter behind him, then reached into Naruto's ninja tool bag and took out a detonating tag, then he smiled and stuck the detonating tag on the TNT. Naruto was stunned, directly shocked by the clone's words. Mud. That makes sense. The clone stuffed the TNT into a black backpack, adjusted the white cloth above his head, and said seriously with an expression as if he was ready to die. Which road is better? I'm going to go to Whirlpool Gigs. The clone picked up the backpack and threw it behind him, then walked away with the bag slung over his shoulder. Naruto was a little dumbfounded. Vortex Gigs. Okay. You want to be a blaster, right? Why is there so much drama surrounding my clone? If anyone has learned how to use multiple clones, please tell me. Naruto looked at the clone dressed in midwinter style walking forward step by step, and his temples began to ache. At this time, Sasuke, who was practicing ruler techniques beside the tent, turned his head and saw a white figure with a backpack on his shoulders. Kakashi and Sakura turned their heads at the same time to look at the figure and became alert instantly. When this guy came closer, the three of them looked closely and found that it was Naruto. Although they didn't know why this kid was dressed so strangely, they just wanted to teach him a lesson. The three of them drew their weapons without hesitation and rushed towards Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. You die. Sakura and Kakashi were relatively restrained and just took out their kunai and shot at Naruto. Sasuke activated the lightning chakra mode and appeared in front of Naruto in the blink of an eye. He raised the Xuanzang ruler high and shouted angrily. No way. I want you dead. During the 2 days that Naruto disappeared, Sasuke and Kakashi fought several times, but there was no winner, which made him even angrier. When he was sleeping at night, he would pound the bed angrily when he thought of Naruto laughing at him for wearing women's clothes. That night, the bed that Naruto had left behind was ruined. Hearing Sasuke calling his name, Naruto looked up and called out subconsciously. Idiot, give it. Then he threw the bag on his shoulder in front of him and ran towards the main body regardless of anything. Chapter 55. I'll definitely attend Haku and Zabuza's wedding. As soon as Sasuke raised the Xuanzang ruler, he saw a black backpack flying towards him. He subconsciously swung the weapon in his hand to knock the bag away, and it happened to fly towards the camp that the three people had just set up. The next second, 2 explosions suddenly sounded in the ears of the 3 people. Boom. Boom. The 3 people who were about to attack Naruto twisted their stiff necks to look at the camp, and found that it had been bombed into ruins. The veins on Kakashi's eyes and forehead were bulging. He had built this campsite by picking up trash with great difficulty. It took him a whole day and a night of hard work. The 3 of them have only been living here for a short time. Kakashi glanced at Naruto, slowly pulled off his eye mask and opened his Sharingan, while starting to form seals with his hands. 2 done. 2 Liubi. A high wall rose from the ground, blocking Naruto's way, but there were several dog heads carved on it. Judging from the carving lines, it can be said that it is 100 times better than the carving technique of Naruto Iwa. Vortex Gigs was blocked by the earth wall, and the 3 people behind him walked towards him step by step with gloomy faces. The 3 people who knew Naruto very well just discovered that something was wrong with Naruto. After all, under normal circumstances, when Naruto sees them taking action, he should open the light gate immediately. And this guy is obviously Naruto's clone. Tell me, where is your real body? Kakashi walked up to him first and asked coldly. He was really angry this time. Obviously, we were all working together to help Sasuke open his eyes, but this guy not only transformed himself into a clone and slipped away on the spot, but also made me bear all of Sasuke's anger. This kind of loophole that allows the team leader to take the blame must never be allowed. I must teach this kid a good lesson. It's a good thing that I'm causing trouble inside the village so that I can take the blame. What if I cause trouble outside the village in the future? Kakashi was really worried that Naruto would put the blame on him again. Vortex Zig stood in front of the three people and a righteous expression instantly appeared on his face. At this moment, he was imagining himself as Jin Kei, the assassin of Qin Shi Huang. The song began to play unconsciously in my mind. The wind is whistling and the Yi River is cold, the warriors are gone and will never come back. Vortex Ziggs glanced at the three people in front of him and spoke to them through gritted teeth. Don't even think about getting any information about my real body from me. Though I die today, I am still Vortex Ziggs. After shouting this, Vortex Ziggs crashed into the earth wall beside him. Bang! After a puff of smoke, Vortex Ziggs died heroically and disappeared in front of several people. The whole process took no more than 3 seconds, leaving Kakashi and the others stunned. What on earth is Naruto's clone doing? What on earth is he talking about? The anger that Sasuke and the others had just ignited was suddenly dampened by Naruto. They really don't know how to deal with this kid now. If we really want to deal with Naruto, if this kid really wants to hide, they may not be able to catch him. Also, Team 7 will have to train like this for a while, and without Naruto's strong logistical capabilities, it really won't work. Kakashi sighed, turned around with his hands in his pockets, and then shouted lifelessly to the people around him. Naruto, stop it. Come out quickly. We have all started training. Naruto, who had just received the memories of his clone, had a very painful expression on his face. Of course, this wasn't because of the side effects of multiple shadow clones, it was mainly because Vortex Ziggs was really. He even began to worry whether he would create some weird character next time he used his shadow clone. I feel so tired, I really want to go back to the village to find my wife. Hearing Kakashi's voice in his ear, Naruto scratched his head and walked out of the woods with a smile. When he saw the three people, he pretended to be surprised. What? Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke. Brother Ying. What a coincidence. Ha 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 ha. A few days ago I suddenly remembered that the gas at home was not turned off. Naruto first greeted them, and then began to explain with a lame excuse why he had been away from the team these days. Kakashi's eyes twitched, and he was speechless. He remembered that the child's home had no gas at all. And this poor acting. You were not as good as that shadow clone just now. Humph. Sasuke glanced at Naruto, snorted coldly, then hung the Xuanzang ruler behind him and turned his head to give Naruto a thumbs up. Although his strength has skyrocketed after opening the 3 Magatama, Naruto's space-time ninjutsu is too tricky. Since he couldn't beat this guy for now, Sasuke decided to wait until he became stronger before dealing with him properly. The kind that gets pressed to the ground and beaten. Not to mention Sakura, Kakashi and Sasuke don't intend to cause trouble, and she, the weakest member of the team, naturally doesn't intend to seek death. Now she just looked at Naruto and got angry for a while. As for the rest, I don't dare to think too much. Seeing that the emotions of the three people had calmed down a little, Naruto secretly walked to Sasuke and asked in a low voice. How is it? How does it feel to open the 3 Magatama? Sasuke. Is this not what you wanted to say just now? Sasuke was so angry that he opened his Sharingan again and glared at Naruto fiercely. Obviously, it is a happy thing that the Sharingan has become 3 Magatama, but Sasuke can't be happy at all when he thinks that he was wearing women's clothes and was discovered by his teammates before his eyes opened. That's right, Naruto. That boy came to see you yesterday. Kakashi suddenly came over and interrupted the two people who were about to fight again, and then talked about Bai coming to see them yesterday. Not long after Haku and Zabuza gave up their mission, they were surrounded and killed by Kato's men. Fortunately, Haku and Kakashi were not injured during the battle. They easily dealt with Kato's men and killed Kato as well. After that, Bai took Zabuza to the Land of Waves to recuperate. I came to look for Konoha's Team 7 yesterday and wanted to invite everyone to have a meal together to thank them for not killing them. By the way, I would like to thank the matchmaker, Mr. Uzumaki. Naruto was slightly stunned after hearing what Teacher Kakashi said, and then a strange smile appeared on his face. Why does it sound like Haku and Zabuza have already expressed their feelings? Good. I, Uzumaki Naruto, will attend your 2 weddings. He could also see what attitude Zabuza, who was once a popular figure, had when he saw him now. Thinking of this, Naruto's mind appeared the scene of the 2 of them getting married. Zabuza is truly a real man who faces men head-on. With a sigh, Naruto began to clean up the debris around him, and then spent another half an hour building a house. Even though the 3 of them had seen Naruto's ability many times, they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts at the usefulness of this ability. That night, Kakashi and others finally had a good sleep. Early the next morning, Team 7 searched for the location left by Bai. After most of the day, they finally found Bai in a village. At this moment, Bai was holding a basin, which contained his and Zabuza's clothes. Chapter 56. Uzumaki Naruto felt so scared for the first time. When Bai saw the members of Team 7, he tilted his head and smiled sweetly, and Sasuke was stunned for a moment. In order not to get caught up in the boy-girl charm, Naruto was already recalling the swimsuit Chiyoko picture in his mind as a way to combat the charm. When Naruto thought of the appearance of Grandma Chiyo, he couldn't stop retching on the spot. The lethality is too strong. Naruto was already thinking about whether to give this thing to Kakashi-sensei as his 27th birthday present. By then, maybe I can help Kakashi quit his bad habit of watching Xiaolubei. When you want to read a book, just take out the limited edition of Chiyo-san's swimsuit and take a look. Sakura looked at Bai and immediately took Sasuke's arm, looking like a protective child. Damn it! This man is too dangerous. Sasuke, wake up. The girl felt so tired. It would be fine if only women coveted her man, but why were they all men? Can you stinky men please stop competing with me for men? There was nothing unusual about Kakashi, he just hunched over. Maybe it's because the bed was too soft last night and my waist hurts. Bai saw Naruto turning his head away and retching without any reaction. He raised his hand and pushed a few strands of hair on his cheek behind his ear. But she felt that having her hair scattered on both sides was very troublesome, so she put down the wooden basin, took the rubber band from her wrist and put it in her mouth, and at the same time, she pulled her hair back with both hands and tied it into a high ponytail. Sakura's eyes were almost filled with anger when she saw this. She seriously suspected that the man in front of her was seducing the male classmates in Team 7. She jumped in front of the group of people angrily, with her arms wide open and still shouting. Wake up! He's a man! Kakashi and Sasuke came to their senses and turned their heads at the same time, avoiding glances and not daring to look at Sakura. As for Naruto, he said that the charm of the man in front of him had no effect on him at all. Everyone, please follow me. Bai smiled gently, picked up the wooden basin on the ground, tilted her head and shook her ponytail twice, motioning the people behind her to follow. Sasuke blushed a little and turned to look at Sakura. Kakashi put his hands in his pockets and walked forward, still admonishing the 3 little ones. You have to be polite when you visit someone else's house, you know. After saying that, his gaze fell on Sakura, and the 2 people beside him looked at the girl at the same time. Sakura was stunned, and when she came to her senses, she felt extremely aggrieved. The 4 followed by and walked for a few minutes before finally arriving at their residence. Just at this moment Zabuza bumped into several people head-on, with a small hammer and some nails in his hands. His body was wrapped in bandages and he walked with a limp, obviously his injuries from the last battle had not yet healed. Zabuza's gaze first lingered on the yellow-haired man, then he immediately looked away, and then stared at the beheading sword behind the boy in cropped pants. Naruto was quite surprised at this guy's condition. Zabuza's injuries were caused by his own fighting, so he will have to stay in bed for at least 10 days or half a month, right? Judging from his appearance now, he is probably almost done. Bai noticed Naruto's puzzled look, and took the initiative to explain. Zabuza came back with injuries that were repaired by a medical ninja we found in a casino. She said that only 80 million ryo can heal Mr. Zabuza's injuries. Casino. Medical ninja. 80 million taels. Naruto and Kakashi, who sensed the element, had subtle expressions. No need to think about it. This is definitely Tsunade, the Konoha gambler. Naruto had his hands over his chest when he heard the price. Mud. This old lady with double ponytails is too dark. If I had known this earlier, I would have earned the money myself. Then he thought of the gold ingots in his system, and he felt much better. But the girl Sakura discovered something different. She observed carefully for a while and found that Zabuza's legs and feet were not injured at all. Thinking of this, the girl leaned back and began to breathe in deep air. Ah! This. The two of them. The two of them won't. The overlapping images of Zabuza and Haku instantly appeared in the girl's mind, and her three views were shattered at this moment. Sakura looked at Zabuza, then at Haku, and felt her cheeks getting hot. But when she thought of Zabuza, the 1.80-meter tall guy, bullying someone of Bai's height, she couldn't bear to watch it for some reason. Obviously, if you don't kill him, his wounds haven't healed yet. How could he be so impatient to speak? What a beast! Sakura, unable to bear it any longer, secretly walked over to Bai. She planned to give a lecture to this man who looked very much like a woman. Bai, are you guys? Sakura pulled Bai aside, stammering something and crossing her thumbs with her hands. Seeing this action, her face turned red just as quickly as Sakura's. I. Bai's flustered look directly confirmed what Sakura had just thought. I said. That guy's injuries haven't healed yet, you can't agree to his request. Sakura's voice suddenly got louder when she spoke here. She glanced at her teammates and found that they were staring at Zabuza, and then continued to look at Shiro. However, Sakura didn't know that her teammate was looking at Zabuza while also eavesdropping on their conversation with his ears perked up. I'm telling you. You should learn to say no to him. Bai turned his head away, not daring to look the girl in the eye, while his hands were still pinching the corners of his clothes and twisting them. From his red ears you can tell that he is really very shy. Judging from her appearance alone, Bai now looks like a young girl in love. I'll pay attention. And Mr. Zabuza is lying down. It won't affect his injuries. You're wrong to think so. What do you mean it won't affect the injury? You have to take care of yourself. Sakura looked very disappointed and didn't understand what was going on in this guy's mind at all. From what Bai just said, it is clear that. And many more. What does Zabuza mean by lying prone? No. No way. The images in Sakura's mind changed again, and then she felt her brain tremble. An extremely terrifying thought also appeared in her mind. After a full minute, she asked uncertainly. You just said. Zabuza, lie down. So you are, top. A few days ago, with the help of teacher Kakashi, she had a general understanding of this forbidden love, and naturally knew what the top and bottom were. Bai's face turned red with embarrassment, and he was stunned for a while before nodding, which was considered as his answer to Sakura. Oh my god. After hearing this fact, Sakura covered her mouth and screamed, her pupils still trembling left and right. In just 3 minutes, the girl was shocked twice by this forbidden love. She really couldn't imagine how Bai, who looked like a girl, could become a top, and how Zabuza, who looked like a burly man, could become a bottom. Gone. The Kurigakure Mento is really scary. Not only was Sakura shocked, but even Kakashi and Naruto beside her took a step back, gasping for breath. The simple-minded Sasuke said he didn't understand. He was now on guard against Zabuza, fearing that this guy would snatch his beloved Shuenjongchi. As for the two people on the side, their condition looked even worse than Sakura's, and their vision was almost darkening. Naruto felt that all the emotions he had for the two of them in his previous life disappeared at this moment, and what followed was a trembling of the heart and liver. Rough. Mr. Zabuza was beaten for nothing. Naruto thought about Bai's previous attitude towards him again. He was already beginning to get scared. Turning his head and looking at Kakashi, Naruto flashed to Sakura's side without saying a word, grabbed her collar and ran back. After returning to his teammates, he quickly threw out several light gates, pulled Sakura with one hand, grabbed Sasuke who was still looking at Zabuza affectionately with the other hand, and drilled into the light gate. But in terms of speed, Kakashi is the fastest. Before leaving, Naruto shouted at Zabuza and Haku. "Sorry, I suddenly remembered that the gas at home was not turned off, so I won't eat. Farewell." If he didn't leave now, Naruto was really worried that he would be beaten. "Still eating. See you again, Mom." Faced with the sudden disappearance of Team 7, Haku and Zabuza were completely confused. After looking at each other for a few seconds, Zabuza spoke. "Go make dinner. I'll go in and fix the bed." Chapter 57 Kakashi, go explain to my mom. The four members of Team 7 passed through the light gate and returned to the camp again. Sakura stood there blankly, seemingly still not recovering from the shock she had just experienced. Naruto and Kakashi looked at each other and found that the other was sweating profusely, obviously frightened. Sasuke noticed something was wrong with his teammates and didn't understand why they reacted like that. What is attacking? What is defending? Isn't it just training between the two of them? When he was training with Kakashi these days, he was always on the offensive. I don't know what's so surprising. Fuss. I'm going to train. Sasuke left a message and headed to the training ground alone. When Sakura saw him leaving, she shook her head vigorously, trying to get rid of all the dirty things in her mind, and then chased after him while calling Sasuke's name. Kakashi glanced at Naruto and suddenly realized that there was something wrong with this kid. Logically, a normal 12-year-old child should have behaved like Sasuke after hearing what Bai just said. Even Sakura only understood this forbidden love after she did some research. Then the problem comes. How on earth did this kid Naruto know this? He must have been peeking at things that shouldn't be seen at his age. Kakashi always felt that he should guide this child well. Even though he wasn't a good role model, he really didn't want Naruto to develop the same bad habits. You must not violate the 3 prohibitions of ninja. If you get involved in any of these, your life is over. Naruto turned and looked at Kakashi in shock. What on earth is this white-haired Zongdang talking about? Don't you have any idea what you are like? Naruto now really wanted to press the little lube in Kakashi's ninja tool bag on his face. Shiro. Kakashi-sensei, you better take care of yourself. At this point Naruto looked Kakashi up and down before continuing. Teacher Kakashi, you are still single at such an old age. I guess you have saved a lot of money. Kakashi opened his mouth but couldn't utter a complete sentence for a long time. He felt like Naruto had hurt him 3 times with just that one sentence. What the hell is wrong with this kid? Why have I always been so choking since I was a kid? If this kid didn't know space-time ninjutsu, I would definitely catch him and give him a good spanking. Naruto noticed that Kakashi was standing still and smiled happily. However, he had a vague feeling that Kakashi might want to deal with him, so he immediately created a space gate and slipped away. Kakashi looked at the yellow-haired man appearing in the distance and sighed helplessly. He suddenly felt that Jiraiya-sama. It may not be possible to calm this child. A few minutes later, Kakashi invited the 3 little ones to sit around him and prepared to arrange the next training plan for them. Sasuke, practice lightning release with me tomorrow and I will teach you a new ninjutsu. Sasuke, who was maintaining the Xuanzang ruler, nodded, excitement revealed in his eyes. For some reason, he always felt that he was very close to practicing 3,000 thunders. Kakashi said and turned to look at the girl who was in a daze beside him. Xiaoying, you are still too weak. Tomorrow I will develop a special chakra control training for you, and then teach you a few genjutsu. When Kakashi said this, he subconsciously looked at the other 2. These two kids were born the same, and when they were 7 years old, they were already training by dragging a tree on the river surface. There is no need for any further training in climbing trees or treading water. After all, they have made great use of the chakra control training. I'll do my best. Sakura is well aware of the gap between herself and her teammates, so she is looking forward to the training plan that Kakashi mentioned. Maybe after completing Kakashi-sensei's training, I can catch up with them by myself. The girl put on an extremely serious expression and waved her fists twice to encourage herself in her heart. Open black lens bracket. Come on, Haruno Sakura, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. You are the best, close black lens bracket. Once I become stronger, I can deal with Naruto. Open black lens bracket. Let's do it, close black lens bracket. After Kakashi and Sakura finished their instructions, they turned to look at Naruto, who looked expectant, and were silent for a while. After thinking about it, he found that he didn't seem to have anything to teach Naruto. Naruto's chakra is wind and earth. He does know quite a few of these two types of escape techniques, but they are either auxiliary ninjutsu or defensive ninjutsu. For Naruto, it would be better not to learn. As for the physical skills, sorry, this kid doesn't need to learn taijutsu at all. He can just stand there and stab the enemy with kunai to fight for recovery. There are few people as perverted as him in the entire ninja world. Naruto looked at Kakashi expectantly. You have to know that this guy is Konoha's gold medal technician, and it is said that he has copied all the enemy's ninjutsu. Mom. This is simply a living encyclopedia of ninjutsu. Moreover, Naruto is trained by Sensei Ju every day, and he really wishes he had a normal teacher who could train him in a normal way. After all these years, Naruto finally understood a truth. The big fox in my stomach is training me in the same way as training tailed beasts. If it weren't for his strong physique, he would have died at the age of 6 under Sensei Nine's tall-tailed beast training method. So Naruto is now eager to see how normal people practice. At this moment, inside the sealed space, Kurama, who was reading a novel, suddenly paused, and then felt some malice towards Naruto. Little devil, are you being disrespectful to me? Hearing the voice of the big fox, Naruto didn't know where to start complaining. How long has this vixen been watching? Why did you change, old man, to this seat? No, just read your book. After casually saying a few words to the big fox in his mind, Naruto looked at Kakashi expectantly again, and then heard a certain white-haired man say something inappropriate. Naruto, how about I teach you Earth style? Earth flow wall. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto, who was originally looking expectant, instantly lost his smile and his expression became extremely stiff after hearing Kakashi's words. My mentality changed from expectation to anger. Mud. Is this white-haired Zhang Deng going too far? You teach Sakura illusion. You teach Sasuke the lightning release. Now you come to me and you teach me earth escape and earth flow wall. I want to learn this ninjutsu, why should I learn your dog-head version? I know you favor Sasuke because of your good friend Obito, but my father is your teacher. Beimao Zongdeng, you are not a human being. Naruto put on a stiff smile before politely raising his middle finger, pointing at him as he shook his head. Just wait for me, you white-haired Pennsylvania. After saying that, Naruto stood up on the spot and walked to a position 10 meters away without looking back. Beimao Zongdeng, who is well versed in ninjutsu, actually used the earth flow wall to perfunctorily deal with himself. Just wait for me. I will go back to the village to learn the impure world reincarnation. When the time comes, go and explain to your master's wife. Since this guy doesn't want to cheat for me, I'll do it myself. Seeing Naruto leave angrily, Kakashi laughed dryly and scratched the back of his head. It's not that he doesn't want to teach. He really doesn't have any ninjutsu that Naruto can use. Anyway, Kakashi thinks his own earth escape technique is pretty good. Very personal. Chapter 58. The boomerang finally hits Naruto. Kakashi glanced at Naruto who was sulking alone on the side and without thinking much, turned around and began to teach the two children beside him how to practice. At this moment, Naruto really hoped that Sasuke would open his Mangekyo so that he could borrow colored contact lenses from his good brother, and then glare at a certain white-haired Nakadashi to death. Okay. If you don't take me with you to practice, I will play by myself. You know, he has mastered the magical skill of multiple shadow clones. Ignoring the previous accident with Vortex Ziggs, he could easily use multiple shadow clones to quickly accumulate experience. Moreover, Teacher Ju is now deeply mired in the quagmire of online literature and has no intention of teaching himself. If you want to practice next, you can only use multiple shadow clones. Naruto nodded firmly and prepared to form hand seals to release the ninjutsu. But somehow, the image of Vortex Gigs asking me for AK and rifle always flashes in my mind. No. Impossible. Situations like this should be the exception. Well, I just created one clone. They are all individual cases. Dada ba yo. Thinking of the appearance of his clone, Naruto was really a little scared. He immediately comforted himself for a few words and then began to make hand seals. The art of multiple shadow clones. Bang bang bang. After the smoke passed by, 5 figures suddenly appeared around Naruto. After releasing the ninjutsu, Naruto's eyes turned black when he saw his own shadow clone, and he was so scared that he uttered a Chinese quintessence on the spot. Fuck. Unlike the imagined shadow clones, these 5 clones were dressed in strange clothes, and the most outrageous thing was, one of them had gray hair, wore a black top and tight overalls, and held a basketball in his hand. So rough. When will this Tamagotchi epidemic end? Standing next to him was a high ponytail warrior clone and another clone wearing a turban. Naruto can tell with his toes that these 2 guys are cosplaying Xiaofeng and Yasuo. Mud. This is the ninja world. Could your painting style not be so outrageous? After seeing these 2 guys with terrible painting styles, Naruto felt that the twin-tailed beautiful girl clone and the black-framed bearded uncle clone next to them seemed quite normal. At least they are within the range of understanding. Naruto rubbed his temple and felt his blood pressure rise instantly. What is the name of the medicine that the 3 generations of old men take? Naruto sighed, having realized that the Uzumaki jigs from last time was not an accident. After taking a look at these clones, I thought it would be a good idea to ask their names first. Tell me about it. What are your names? Brother G over there, can you please stop playing basketball? Naruto was really going to be pissed off at his clone. I am so tired. I must let the 2nd generation see what these clones of mine are like in the future. Hearing the original's question, the 4 clones took a step forward at the same time and began to introduce themselves. Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki Yasuo. Whirlpool Xiaofeng. Whirlpool Stark. Hello everyone, I have been practicing for 2.5 years. Get out. Naruto was so angry that he used wind style. Blood violence technique on the spot, instantly flashed in front of the guy, and then kicked this Uzumaki chicken guy to pieces. Just now this guy was dancing and playing basketball on the sidelines, and now he is still doing this. He really can't bear it. He, Uzumaki Naruto, wanted his shadow clone to help him gain experience. Don't do it. Calm down, main body. Uzumaki Naruto walked up to Naruto, raised her hand and patted his shoulder, saying something comforting. Looking up, I saw Uzumaki Naruto's 1.7-meter height, beautiful face, and long legs. She looks like a beautiful 18-year-old girl. Suffer. I was bewitched by my own clone. After taking 2 glances, Naruto shouted in his heart that something was wrong, and used Chio's swimsuit picture again in his mind to calm his mind. We are here to help you become stronger. After Uzumaki Naruto finished speaking, the 3 clones beside her nodded at the same time in agreement. But Naruto became even more confused when he heard this. You guys have come up with something like this. What good solution is there? Naruto thinks he is a very capable person and doesn't believe a word his clone says. It hasn't been long since I tricked Sasuke into wearing women's clothes to become stronger. Now I won't let myself suffer the consequences, right? Of course I can't let you wear women's clothes. Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto's words almost scared Naruto so much that he turned around and ran away. How come you can read minds? There is no such thing as mind reading. I just know your true self very well. Fuck. After hearing this, Naruto was really shocked. Don't scare me. Otherwise I'm going to cancel the shadow clone. Naruto turned his back and didn't dare to look at the other person anymore, for fear that the clone would guess what he was thinking. Of course, he would not be bewitched by his own clone. Just an 18-year-old blonde girl with twin ponytails and long legs. Not worth mentioning. At this time, Uzumaki Stark took out paper and pen from somewhere, lowered his head and walked to Naruto. While writing something on the paper, he spoke. Next, I will help you research the module as much as possible. Well, let's start with the most familiar one. After he said that, he motioned Yasuo and Chao Feng to come forward. The main body. The Craftsman's Soul module, and the Sword Drawing module. Throw the things out first so I can study them. It's time to let the ninja world see how powerful I, the Wind Swordsman, am. As soon as Uzumaki Yasuo walked up to Naruto, he started asking for something without saying a word. Since he had no sword on him, he could only hold the air at his waist and make a gesture of drawing a sword. Hehe. Hasaki. For a swordsman, being without a sword means having no dignity. After finishing the work, Uzumaki Yasuo clasped his arms, found a tree to lean against, and put on a weathered look on his face. Although I have traveled the world, I have never lost my original intention. Putting aside the fact that Uzumaki Yasuo was being dramatic, the suggestion this guy just made was enough to make Naruto's eyes light up. It sounds like that's the case. You are really worthy of being me. Reliable. At this time, Chao Feng on the side said with a serious face. The main body. I don't ask for much. Give me the whole high-powered stereo. Then I can carry this thing and dance with Madara-sama. At this point, Uzumaki Chao Feng took a horse stance on the spot, and then began waving his arms continuously in place. It seems that he is imitating the 18 dragons subduing palms in the TV series in his previous life. What bothers Naruto the most is, this guy is still dubbing himself. No one can beat me in my BGM. Uzumaki Naruto. I knew it. This whirlpool, Chao Feng is not reliable at all. Chapter 59 It and #039, S broken. He actually built it. Naruto held his forehead with one hand and forced himself to resist the urge to beat Uzumaki Chao Feng to death. After marking out an area on the spot, he began to throw out system props under the arrangement of Vortex Stark. Kakashi, who was instructing the other two, glanced in Naruto's direction and stopped what he was doing in shock. Naruto's shadow clones in strange costumes have made him almost doubt his life. What is this kid doing? Why can he always come up with something different for himself? Besides, whose shadow clone is like this? Thinking of the clone with a white cloth on his head, Kakashi could only sigh that Naruto was becoming more and more fancy now. Especially the twin-tailed clone. Kakashi was so stiff when he saw this. Verified. Naruto must have secretly seen something he shouldn't have. Otherwise, it would be impossible to create such an avatar. Kakashi-sensei. The young girl Sakura looked at Kakashi with a perverted look on his face, making strange noises from time to time, and her face turned red with anger. I have just started teaching myself illusion. He hadn't said half of his words when he started laughing in Naruto's direction. Sakura suddenly felt very tired. Although it's fun to be with Sasuke, to be honest. Sakura seriously doubted that she was the only normal person in the team. Looking in Kakashi's direction, Sakura was petrified instantly when she saw the beautiful blonde girl. Sasuke, who was flirting, noticed that the two of them looked strange and glanced at Naruto, then subconsciously said, "So big." After saying that, he couldn't help but glance towards Sakura. Kakashi nodded in agreement with Sasuke's words. Really? Only men can understand men's hearts. Sasuke's words were like a whisper from Garen, leaving Sakura silent and defenseless. The girl's fragile heart was also hit hard at this moment. What are you talking about? Why did Naruto create such a lustful clone? After experiencing the forbidden love between Haku and Zabuza, Sakura became completely wary of Naruto. But who would have thought that this guy would create such a clone? The most important thing is, Sasuke just spoke. This has never happened since she knew Sasuke. Although she had caught Sasuke wearing women's clothes before, this did not affect the image of him in her mind. But isn't it a bit too much for Sasuke to look at Naruto's clone and shout, "It's so big"? Sakura looked at the blonde girl from afar and almost burst into tears. Sasuke. Kakashi-sensei. We agreed to practice. The girl's shouting finally brought the two men back to their senses. Kakashi touched his chin, still with a savoring expression. After looking at him for a few more seconds, Sasuke turned around and continued to flirt with him. He didn't dare to read on, for fear that he would waste his practice. No way. Who made Naruto's clone so awesome? Don't be fooled by Sasuke's wooden appearance, he actually understands the things between men and women. Of course, he was still confused a few days ago. Ever since Naruto gave him the novel, Sasuke's mentality has changed a little bit. However, Sasuke believes that the most important thing at this stage is to improve his ninja power so that he can kill the man with his own hands. Seeing the two men looking unsatisfied, Sakura fell into self-doubt. If she could defeat Naruto, she would really like to die together with that guy. Think about it carefully. If this guy really attacks Sasuke, it seems like she has no chance of winning. No. I must have a good chat with Hinata after returning to the village. Sakura felt that Naruto couldn't solve the problem, so she had to ask Hyuga Hinata for help. Hinata probably doesn't want the man she likes to be with Sasuke. After Kakashi recovered, he taught her how to practice illusion, and then asked Sasuke to take her up the tree. As for Kakashi, he ran to the treetop again and took out little Lubei to look at it. He was about to quit, but after taking a few glances at Naruto's clones just now, he really couldn't control his hands. Kakashi leaned against the tree and looked around. After making sure that no one was looking at him, he took out Intimate Paradise. As Kakashi took out the book, he felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. I'll finish watching it today and start quitting tomorrow. On the other side, with the help of Team Intelligence, Team Uzumaki finally created the weapon that Uzumaki Yasuo wanted. My master, do you think my sword is good? Uzumaki Yasuo chuckled and placed the long sword emitting a faint blue light in Naruto's hand. After weighing it twice, Naruto couldn't help but mutter in a low voice. This sword is the sharpest weapon in the world. The sword tip is 3 feet and 7 inches, and weighs 7 pounds and 13 ounces. It must be a peerless sword. Uzumaki Yasuo. Uzumaki Naruto. Whirlpool Stark. That's enough, main body. You were just complaining about me, Uzumaki Chao Feng, but now you're acting like Uzumaki Blizzard. Uzumaki Chao Feng couldn't help but complain on the side, and even Uzumaki Stark agreed. Speechless. None of the data you mentioned matches. Science is rigorous, kid. Naruto ignored the two clones, waved the sword lightly twice, then raised it high and looked it up and down. Blade without sheath. Attack. 100. Open black lens bracket sharp 3 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket durability 3 close black lens bracket. Soul binding. Uzumaki Naruto Uzumaki Yasuo. Skills. Way of the Rurouni, Steel Flash, Wind Barrier, Forward Slash, and Breathless Slash. Naruto was shocked when he saw the stats of this sword. The additional attributes are quite satisfactory. But how did this skill come about? Broken. Uzumaki Yasuo is really going to be the wind swordsman of the ninja world. Naruto threw the knife to Uzumaki Yasuo, then looked at Uzumaki Stark with a puzzled look, wanting to hear what his clone had to say. Nothing surprising. You also know that things in the system will adapt to the rules of this world after they are taken out. Is it reasonable for me to add some wind jutsu chakra to forge a skill? But you have to be careful when using these weapons. Before Uzumaki Stark could say anything, he heard Uzumaki Yasuo screaming beside him. Death is like the wind, always with me. Then we see Uzumaki Yasuo lowering his body, holding the hilt of the knife with his right hand, first throwing out a small hurricane to blow up Uzumaki Chao Feng, and then flashing into the air. Soleil, it hurts. Uzumaki Yasuo, you. Wait for me to play the background music if you can. Bang bang. The moment the two clones touched in the air, they instantly turned into two balls of smoke and disappeared. The newly forged unsheathed blade also fell from the air to the ground. Uzumaki Stark pointed to the knife on the ground and shrugged. Well, you don't have enough physical strength to use these weapons. He would be like them, dead instantly. Naruto was stunned for a moment, feeling a little scared. Fortunately, he did not take out the sword of universe control to play with it on a whim, otherwise he would have been torn to pieces by the power of the sword on the spot. Can I solve this problem by eating? Naruto felt a little uneasy when he said this. When he was a child, he could only eat those perverted amplification foods in the sealed space. Anyway, it was a creative mode in there and could not kill people. But if you want to take it out. He was really afraid of eating those abnormal amplification foods and killing himself. It is similar to the situation where a person in the Foundation establishment stage takes a Mahayana stage elixir. After all, he is just an ordinary nine-tails Jinchuriki, not a cube-like man who is as powerful as a god. You'll know if you try it. Uzumaki Naruto stretched out her hand in front of him, licked her lips playfully, her eyes full of tears, and looked like she was begging for food. Naruto's face turned red immediately. Chapter 60 Kakashi. I'll just eat the one that's left, okay. Naruto directly took out the universe meatball from the system space. Under the influence of external rules, Naruto's hand-holding meatball suddenly sank, and he almost fell to the ground. Even the ground began to crack under the weight. You have to know that when this thing is sealing the space, you won't feel anything when holding it. Only now that he took it out did he feel the weight of the universe meatball. If it were that weakling Sasuke, he would probably have fallen to the ground on the spot. Naruto's thoughts suddenly diverged. According to this situation, I think I will have no shortage of weight-bearing equipment in the future, so I can just take the universe meatball with me for training. I just don't know if this thing has a shelf life if left outside. Naruto raised his hand and lightly threw the universe meatball to Uzumaki Naruto. If you didn't look at the cracked ground under his feet, you might think it was just an ordinary strange food that was glowing with a faint green color. Uzumaki Naruto took the universe meatball and her body also sank, and the smile on her face disappeared instantly. The main body. You even hide your own clone. There was a hint of anger in her tone and she rolled her eyes at Naruto. The beautiful girl's lethality is a little bit too great. When Naruto saw the other person's appearance, he immediately turned his head to look at Uzumaki Stark beside him. How can I conjure you guys up next time I use multiple shadow clones? He now understands. My multiple shadow clones must have been trained incorrectly. Perhaps this is a side effect of having multiple shadow clones. Nadime, I understand. No wonder multiple shadow clones is called a forbidden technique. However, what Naruto is more worried about is that the next time he uses multiple shadow clones, he will create unreliable shadow clones like Uzumaki Chicken Brother. At present, Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Stark are reliable. Just think about us in your mind. As long as you don't let your mind wander when you use multiple clones. Normally there won't be any weird clones. Uzumaki Naruto explained, then raised the universe meatball in her hand and began to look around. Naruto pursed his lips when he heard what she said. Okay. So those unreliable shadow clones are all my fault. Naruto was only prepared to believe half of what Uzumaki Naruto said. He admitted that he had just been secretly thinking about Brother G in his mind. But he would never admit that he was secretly thinking about dressing up as a woman. Myself, I want to eat. At this time, Uzumaki Naruto swallowed the universe meatball in one gulp. The next second, Naruto noticed that Uzumaki Naruto's face turned red. How about it? Will anything bad happen if I eat this? Uzumaki Naruto first shook her twin ponytails and shook her head, then nodded a few times, which made Naruto confused. What does it mean? My strength seems to be increasing. Uzumaki Naruto said this while hitting her chest with her fist, and then continued with a frustrated look on her face. I'm almost choking. Cough cough. Naruto held his forehead with one hand and sighed deeply. How fierce are you? People have to chew this stuff several times before eating it in the game. It would be strange if you don't choke if you swallow it in one gulp. Seeing that Uzumaki Naruto was really uncomfortable, he took out a bottle of water. He didn't want to accept the memory of his shadow clone being choked to death. However, before Naruto handed the water to Uzumaki Naruto, he heard the sound of a shadow clone exploding. I was just about to sigh that my shadow clone was choked to death. It was not until after accepting the memory that Naruto realized that Naruto was not choked to death. But he was choked to death by the meatballs of the universe. After realizing that he couldn't just take out the things in the system and eat them randomly, Naruto created dozens of shadow clones in Uzumaki Naruto. It is worth mentioning that the shadow clone that appeared this time was not so strange because there was no wild imagination. Afterwards, Naruto placed a piece of cloth on the ground and threw out most of the food that could be used for bonuses, specifically for his clone to taste. The three people not far away looked at Naruto suddenly starting to have a picnic on the spot and were completely confused. Aren't they practicing? Why do my teammates behave like this? Kakashi, who was leaning against the tree, twitched his nose twice and his stomach began to growl. He closed the book, turned over and climbed down the tree, still talking to Sasuke and Sakura. You guys practice first. I'm going to get something to eat. As for Naruto, he had just prepared the death experience package for his clone when he ran to Whirlpool Stark. Naruto scratched his head and chuckled, then took out the large iron door that he often used from his bag. Help me upgrade my weapon. Whirlpool Stark, who was recording the experimental situation, looked at the big iron door in the main body's hand and was speechless. Can't the main body have some normal weapons? Whirlpool Stark sighed when he saw the original body's eager look, and finally took the big iron gate from him. If it weren't for me, this family would have fallen apart sooner or later. What does it upgrade to? Naruto rolled his eyes and replied with a grin. Tough, able to fly, and a killer of the undead. Oh, right. You'd better write, this is it, on the big iron gate for me. If possible, it would automatically play the sound when it comes into contact with the enemy. Well, let's just use the phrase, you're broken. Whirlpool Stark was silent for a few seconds, then suddenly said. The main body. Are you sure you won't get beaten to death if you do this? The difficulty of manufacturing this equipment was not too difficult for him, but just thinking about the fact that his main body would use this special big iron gate to fight against Madara-sama in the future. Madara was laughing wildly. His 3 punches and 2 kicks were blocked by the big iron gate, and then he saw 4 big words on the iron gate. That's it, that's it. Wouldn't Madara be so angry that he would die on the spot? And it's not over yet. Maybe when Madara-sama was red hot, he could still hear the sound of the big iron gate. You're broken. Tisk tisk. The taunt effect is maximized. What's this? I am a man with the totem of immortality. After Naruto finished speaking, he took out the little golden man that symbolized the totem of immortality from his backpack. However, when this item appeared, the Uzumaki team fell silent. After the undead totem was taken out, it was as tall as a person. Naruto opened his mouth and hesitated for a long time, still not knowing what to say. After the system items are taken to the display world, changes in the rules will appear. But why is the undead totem so big? Naruto looked at the immortal totem in front of him, which was almost as tall as himself, and a scene of himself carrying this thing and fighting the enemy in the future suddenly appeared in his mind. Isn't it a little absurd to fight the enemy with a little golden man tied to your back? He felt that his future painting style would definitely be better than Pain's. Oh, there are so many roads. This food looks delicious. At this time, Kakashi came to the food experiment area of the Uzumaki team and picked up a piece of meat that changed color.